Mistress slaps wife at the office. Wife orders security to slap her back 100 times, fires and divorces husband on the spot. New York City in late autumn was filled with a light, misty rain. The slate-gray sky draped over the towering skyscrapers, casting a gloomy and freezing aura over the metropolis. On the 68th floor of the Sterling Enterprises Tower, the lights in the CEO's suite remained blazing, standing in stark contrast to the darkness swallowing the city outside. Serena Sterling sat deep within her premium leather executive chair, her sharp, piercing eyes glued to the computer monitor. Her massive desk was littered with thick financial reports. By all rights, she should have been attending the annual charity gala of the city's business elite, a place where socialites and wealthy wives flaunted their designer gowns to project an image of wealth and marital bliss. But Serena despised those loud, superficial events. To her, the numbers on the screen were the only things worthy of her attention. She rubbed her temples, a sharp ache pulsating in her skull. Her executive assistant walked in, gently placing a cup of black, sugarless coffee on the desk, and spoke softly. "Miss Sterling, it is already 11 at night. Do you want to get some rest?" Serena did not look up. Her slender fingers continued to fly across the keyboard, and her voice, husky, yet commanding, rang out. "You can head home first. I need to review the investment capital for the lighthouse project under our subsidiary. There are a few discrepancies." The assistant hesitated for a moment before quietly stepping out and closing the door. In the vast office, only the clatter of the keyboard and the rain pelting against the reinforced glass remained. The lighthouse project was a high-risk venture that Lucas Vance, her husband and the managing director of the Sterling subsidiary, had aggressively pushed to launch 3 months ago. At the time, he had presented a flawless business plan, painting a picture of massive profits from developing a coastal eco-resort. Serena, inherently cautious, had hesitated but ultimately approved the funding. Part of it was out of trust in her husband's passion, and part of it was a desire to give him a chance to prove his competence to the board of directors. But tonight, while auditing the third-quarter cash flow, she discovered a fatal loophole. The initial disbursement of $2 million had not been transferred to the construction contractor's account as reported. It had taken a detour through 3 shell companies, and its final destination was a personal account at an offshore bank. Serena stopped typing. She leaned back in her chair, closed her eyes, and took a deep breath. The sharp intuition of a woman who had survived in the corporate battlefield for nearly 10 years told her this was no technical error. This was premeditated embezzlement. And the person whose signature authorized the wire transfer was none other than Lucas Vance. She picked up her phone, intending to call the head of finance to freeze the subsidiary's accounts immediately, but her finger paused in midair. If she did that now, she would alert the snake in the grass. She needed concrete evidence. She needed to know exactly what that money was used for. Serena shut down her computer, stood up, and draped a beige trench coat over her shoulders. She stepped out of the building, the freezing wind slapping her face, making her more awake than ever. The luxury sedan rolled through the empty streets, taking her back to the lakeside estate in Westchester where she and Lucas had lived for the past 5 years. When she arrived home, the living room lights were still on. Lucas was sitting on the sofa watching the financial news, a half-empty glass of red wine resting on the coffee table. Seeing his wife return, he quickly stood up, flashed his familiar, affectionate smile, and walked over to take her purse and coat. "Why are you home so late?" "I told you not to overwork yourself. The company has thousands of employees. If the CEO has to do everything herself, why even pay them?" Lucas's voice was warm, his gestures as flawlessly caring as always. If it had been the past, Serena would have felt a sense of comfort. She would have rested her head on his shoulder and complained a bit about work. But today, looking at that smile, she only saw a chilling hypocrisy. Serena smoothly sidestepped Lucas's touch. She walked straight into the kitchen, poured herself a glass of filtered water, and spoke with an eerie calmness. "It is the end of the year, so there is a lot to finalize. You are not asleep yet?" Lucas followed her into the kitchen, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder, and whispering, "How could I sleep when my wife is not home? Let me heat up some chicken noodle soup for you. My mother said you have lost weight recently, and it breaks my heart to see you like this." Lucas's breath brushed against her neck, carrying the faint scent of red wine. Serena stood as still as a wooden statue, her hand gripping the glass of water so tightly her knuckles turned stark white. She remembered the $2 million that had vanished into thin air. She remembered his sloppy signatures on the forged invoices. Just how long had this man, currently playing the role of a model husband, been wearing this mask? She peeled Lucas's hands off her and turned to look him dead in the eye. Her gaze was as deep and freezing as a winter lake, causing Lucas to flinch slightly. The smile on his lips stiffened. "I am tired. I want to take a shower. Go to sleep first." With that, she walked straight upstairs, not giving Lucas a chance to say another word. Inside the massive master bathroom, steam billowed heavily. Serena soaked in the hot tub, trying to wash away the exhaustion and disgust clinging to her mind. Her phone, resting on the marble counter, suddenly buzzed with a message. She reached for it. It was a text from an unknown number. There was no text, only a single photograph. In the picture was Lucas, wearing the navy blue suit she had bought him last month, walking into the lobby of a luxury hotel in Manhattan. There was no one beside him, but his arm was wrapped around the back of someone unseen, as if protecting or guiding a person walking just out of the frame. The camera angle had deliberately cropped out his companion. But what caught Serena's attention was not Lucas's posture, but the timestamp on the security camera footage in the corner of the photo. 2:30 p.m. this afternoon. At that exact time, Lucas had texted her, saying he was in a crucial meeting with investors in the tech district and could not pick up his phone. Serena stared blankly at the photo. She did not cry. She did not throw her phone in a fit of rage. She merely smiled. A cold and bitter smile. It turned out a woman's intuition was never wrong. Financial irregularities always walked hand in hand with romantic betrayals. She saved the photo to a secure folder, then forwarded it to the private investigator she had secretly hired a week ago. She added a brief command: "Investigate Lucas's schedule this afternoon. I want to know who was with him." By the time Serena stepped out of the bathroom, Lucas was already in bed, his steady snores echoing in the room. She stood by the bed, looking at the handsome, sleeping face of her husband. This man came from an ordinary background. Marrying her had allowed him to touch the sky, becoming a managing director, driving luxury cars, and living in a mansion. She had never let him lack anything. She had even turned a blind eye to his limited capabilities to save his face in front of the employees. And yet, he repaid her with this despicable betrayal. Serena pulled the blanket over Lucas. Her action was gentle, but her eyes were as sharp as knives. Tonight would be the last night she held the title of a gentle wife. Starting tomorrow, she would control the game. She would not cause a hysterical public scene like other women. She was Serena Sterling, CEO of Sterling Enterprises. Whoever dared to touch her money and her pride would pay the price 100 times over. She turned off the bedside lamp and lay down next to the husband with whom she no longer shared a soul, her eyes wide open in the dark, calculating every move for the upcoming chessboard. The next morning, Serena woke up earlier than usual. She chose a tailored ivory pantsuit that highlighted her slender but powerful figure, pairing it with pointed stiletto heels. She applied her makeup carefully, concealing the dark circles from her sleepless night, and added a touch of deep red lipstick. The face in the mirror radiated a cold, arrogant aura, like a female warrior donning her iron armor before heading into battle. Lucas maintained his habit of waking up late. When he lazily strolled down to the dining room, Serena had already finished her breakfast and was checking the news on her tablet. "Good morning, beautiful. You look stunning today. Do you have an important meeting?" Lucas bent down to kiss her cheek, but Serena pretended to accidentally drop her pen on the floor, causing his kiss to land on empty air. "I am dropping by the subsidiary today to check the progress of the lighthouse project. I heard the contractors are facing some issues with the capital disbursement," Serena said casually, her eyes never leaving the screen. She clearly felt Lucas's body go rigid for a split second. He hurriedly pulled out a chair and sat down, his voice trying to sound normal but slightly stumbling. "Oh, I can handle that. You just focus on the corporate headquarters. Leave these trivial matters to me. Why tire yourself out going down there? It will just put pressure on the staff." Serena looked up, the corners of her lips curling into a smile that did not reach her eyes. "I am the CEO. Visiting a subsidiary is completely normal. Or is there something down there you are hiding from me, which is why you do not want me to go?" Lucas forced a laugh, waving his hands frantically. "Nonsense. What could I possibly hide from you? I just do not want you to be overworked. Let me go with you then. No need. I have to stop by the bank first. You head to the office as usual. I will meet you there." Serena stood up, grabbed her handbag, and walked out to her car, leaving Lucas staring blankly at the dining table, his oatmeal untouched. At 9:00 a.m., Serena's sleek black Maybach pulled up in front of the subsidiary's office building. The sudden appearance of the Ice Queen, the nickname the employees secretly gave her, threw the entire lobby into chaos. The receptionists scrambled to adjust their uniforms and bowed respectfully. Serena paid them no mind. She strode purposefully toward the executive elevator and pressed the button for the top floor. The head of finance and the HR director, hearing the news, rushed out to greet her, sweating profusely, but she only gave them a cold nod, signaling them not to follow. She walked straight to the managing director's office. The door was slightly ajar. Outside, at the secretary's desk, a young woman was sitting and filing her nails, her attitude somewhat aloof and negligent. Hearing the sharp click of stiletto heels striking the marble floor, the girl looked up. She was very young, with an oval face and large, innocent eyes, exuding a fragile, pouty vibe that made men want to protect her. She wore a sheer white silk blouse, the top 2 buttons undone to reveal her delicate collarbones. This was Chloe Monroe, the new secretary Lucas had hired just a month ago. Seeing Serena, Chloe did not show the fear or respect that other employees did. She slowly set down her nail file, stood up, and offered a polite social smile, but her eyes carried a hidden challenge. "Hello, Miss Sterling. Mr. Vance has not arrived yet. Do you have an appointment?" The casual tone, completely devoid of proper professional titles, combined with her sickeningly sweet voice, made Serena feel nauseous. She glanced at the name tag on the girl's chest, then looked straight into those falsely innocent eyes. "Do I need an appointment to visit my own company? Are you a new employee? You do not even know basic corporate etiquette." Chloe did not flinch under Serena's oppressive aura. She stepped out from behind the desk, deliberately sweeping her long hair to one side, clearly revealing a bright red hickey standing out against her pale neck. The mark was very fresh, definitely the handiwork of last night or this morning. "Please forgive me, Miss Sterling. I am new to the workforce, so I still have a lot to learn. Mr. Vance always teaches me that this company is flexible and does not care about trivial formalities. What matters is work efficiency and understanding the boss." She emphasized the phrase "understanding the boss" with heavy implication. Chloe picked up a water pitcher, intending to pour a glass for Serena, but her movements were sluggish and theatrical. Serena stared at the red mark on her neck. A violent storm surged in her heart, but her exterior remained as still as a frozen lake. She instantly recognized this girl's tactic. She wanted to use her presence to provoke the legal wife. She wanted to declare war to see who truly held Lucas's heart. Serena stepped closer to Chloe, closing the distance so much that the younger girl instinctively took a step back. Serena raised her hand, not to strike, but to adjust the collar of Chloe's blouse. Her freezing fingers brushed against the hickey, making Chloe shudder. "Your collar is too low. You should dress more modestly for work. Otherwise, outsiders might look in and think this is a cheap burlesque club instead of a real estate firm. That is quite a large mosquito bite you have there. Must be a toxic one. Be careful, or you might spread an infectious disease." Serena's words were spoken softly, but every syllable felt like needles piercing Chloe's face. The girl's face turned beet red. She hurriedly pulled her collar up to cover her neck, a flash of resentment gleaming in her eyes. Just then, the elevator doors opened, and Lucas rushed in, panting. Seeing the scene of his wife and his mistress standing face to face, all the blood drained from his face. He lunged forward, wedging himself between the two women, his voice filled with panic mixed with a desire to protect. "Serena, you are here. Why didn't you go sit in the office? Why are you standing out here?" Then he turned and lightly scolded Chloe, though his eyes were full of worry. "What are you doing leaving the CEO standing out here? Go make some coffee. Right now." Chloe lowered her head, her voice suddenly trembling and choked, as if she were about to cry. "I am sorry. I just wanted to offer the CEO some water, but she said I dress inappropriately and accused me of having an infectious disease. I do not know what I did wrong." Hearing this, Lucas frowned. He turned to look at Serena with reproachful eyes. "Serena, what is wrong with you? She is just a new employee, fresh out of college. There is no need for you to be so harsh. You are the CEO of a massive corporation. Why stoop to the level of a secretary and lose your dignity?" Serena watched the clumsy theatrical performance unfold before her. The husband stubbornly defending his mistress, and the mistress playing the bullied little lamb. The sheer shamelessness of this adulterous pair had exceeded her wildest imagination. She did not explain. She did not argue. She simply stepped back, gracefully sitting down on the guest sofa in the waiting area, crossing her legs. Her demeanor was utterly relaxed and composed. "Whether I was harsh or not, she knows perfectly well. As for you, Lucas, you are overreacting. I was merely reminding an employee about the company dress code. Why are you so distressed? Or are you afraid her feelings might be hurt? Serena's question hit Lucas like a bucket of ice water. He stammered, cold sweat breaking out on his forehead. I was just afraid it would affect the work environment. Let's go into my office. We can talk about the project. Let's not make a scene out here. Serena stood up, lightly dusting off her jacket as if she had just touched something filthy. She walked past Lucas and went straight into his office. Before the door clicked shut, she turned her head to look at Chloe one last time. The look in her eyes was no longer contempt, but pity for a dying fool who did not even realize her fate. The war had just begun, and Serena would not let anyone walk out of this chessboard in one piece. Inside the office, Lucas's masculine cologne could not mask the lingering, cheap, sweet perfume on the sofa. The exact same scent she had smelled on the secretary outside. Everything was crystal clear. The clock on the wall ticked closer to midnight. On the long oak dining table, the elaborate dinner dishes had long gone cold, a layer of white, unappetizing grease congealing on top. Serena sat at the head of the table, her back perfectly straight, holding a glass of water she never drank from. She had sat like that for 3 hours, as still as a sculpted statue in the middle of a massive but lifeless mansion. The familiar roar of a car engine echoed in the driveway, tearing through the silence. The heavy mahogany door swung open. Lucas walked in, bringing with him a gust of cold wind and the faint stench of alcohol. In his hand was a paper bag bearing the logo of the luxury fashion brand Hermes. Seeing his wife still sitting at the dining table, Lucas froze for a second, a flash of guilt crossing his eyes, but he quickly covered it up with his usual apologetic smile. He placed the bag on the coffee table and walked briskly over to Serena, his warm voice ringing out. "Serena, why are you not asleep yet? I told you not to wait up for me. Today the investors forced me to drink. I couldn't refuse, which is why I am late." Serena looked up at her husband. Her gaze swept over his flushed face and settled on the expensive designer bag. She remembered perfectly well that the investor Lucas claimed to meet today was a notorious real estate tycoon known for being a cheapskate. Why would he gift something so luxurious? Or if Lucas had bought a gift for the investor, it should have been rare scotch or cigars, not a woman's handbag. She gently set her glass down, her voice calm and rippleless. "You went to entertain clients? And you still managed to swing by Fifth Avenue to buy a purse? That model is from the latest collection. You have to be on a wait list for a month to get it. You are incredibly thoughtful." Lucas jumped, his eyes darting toward the bag. Cold sweat began to bead on his forehead. He forced an awkward laugh, his movements clumsy. This belongs to my boss's wife. She asked me to pick it up for her. You know how you women love these things. I know nothing about it. Anyway, you should head upstairs and rest. I am going to take a shower to sober up." With that, Lucas hurriedly took off his suit jacket, draped it over the back of a chair, avoiding his wife's scrutinizing gaze, and darted into the bathroom. He was so careless he forgot his habit of checking his pockets before tossing his clothes around. Or perhaps he was too confident that Serena was still the blindly trusting wife she used to be. Serena stood up and walked over to Lucas's suit jacket. She picked it up. A strong wave of women's perfume assaulted her nose, overpowering the smell of alcohol and cigarette smoke. It was a cheap, sickeningly sweet perfume, the exact same scent she had smelled on Chloe at the office that morning. She reached into the inner breast pocket. Her fingers brushed against a piece of paper folded in 4. Serena pulled it out and unfolded it under the brilliant glow of the crystal chandelier. It was not a dinner receipt. It was not a business contract. It was an HCG blood test result from a private maternity clinic in Manhattan. The patient's name was Chloe Monroe. The conclusion: the fetus was 6 weeks old. Tucked beneath the paper was a tiny, grainy, black and white ultrasound photo. Serena felt her heart being crushed inside her chest. 6 weeks. That meant they had been sleeping together before Chloe even joined the company as a secretary. Lucas had orchestrated everything. He brought his mistress into her company, using her money to raise this illegitimate child right under her nose. The bathroom door swung open. Lucas walked out with a towel wrapped around his waist, his hair still dripping wet. Seeing Serena holding the piece of paper, the blood drained entirely from his face. He lunged forward to snatch it back, but Serena took a step back, her eyes staring into his like daggers. "What is this?" Lucas stammered, his face turning paper white, then flushing bright red. "Did you rummage through my things?" That belongs to a girl in the office." It was an unplanned pregnancy. She was afraid her family would find out, so she asked me to hold on to it for her. Do not overthink things. Serena let out a laugh, a dry, freezing sound that echoed through the massive kitchen. Asked you to hold on to it? A maternity test belonging to your personal secretary ends up in your suit pocket, along with her perfume drenched all over your clothes? Lucas, do you take me for an idiot? Do you think I cannot do the math? 6 weeks ago, you said you were going on a 3-day business trip to Miami. It turns out you went there to plant your seed? Seeing that he could no longer deny it, Lucas changed his tune. His fear morphed into defensive anger. He yelled, "Enough! Stop humiliating people. Even if it is true, so what? We have been married for 5 years. Look at your own stomach. Has anything happened? I am the only son carrying my family name. My parents are going crazy waiting for a grandchild. You are obsessed with making money. Have you ever cared about how I feel? I am a man too. I need a real family." Lucas's words were like poisoned arrows piercing straight through Serena's heart. For 5 years, she had worked herself to the bone for this family, for this company, to the point of suffering a miscarriage 3 years ago due to severe overwork while trying to save his subsidiary from bankruptcy. Now, he was using that exact pain to justify his despicable betrayal. Serena did not cry, nor did she scream. She dropped the paper onto the floor, staring at Lucas with absolute icy disgust, as if looking at a pile of garbage. You want an heir? Fine. But you forgot one thing. Whose house are you living in? Whose money are you spending? And whose grace put you in that managing director's chair? Having said that, she turned and walked away. Lucas stood rooted to the spot, watching her silhouette retreat. A vague sense of dread rose in his chest, but his masculine pride stopped him from chasing after her to beg. Serena returned to her home office and locked the door. She pulled out her phone and dialed her personal lawyer. "Hello, Attorney Davis. Draft my divorce papers immediately. The grounds are infidelity resulting in an illegitimate child. Also, call Marcus, the head of security. Tomorrow morning, reinforce the security personnel at the corporate lobby. I want to thoroughly sweep the garbage out of my life tomorrow." The next morning, the atmosphere at the Sterling Enterprises headquarters was as tense as a stretched bowstring. Rumors about Mr. Vance having a mistress and facing the CEO's wrath had spread like wildfire through private employee group chats since the night before. People walked on eggshells, no one daring to laugh or speak loudly. At 9:00 a.m., a taxi pulled up to the grand entrance. Chloe stepped out, wearing a baggy maternity dress to emphasize a pregnancy that was only 6 weeks along. She carried the Hermes bag Lucas had brought home the night before. Her face was pale with minimal makeup, deliberately projecting a pathetic, fragile look, but her eyes blazed with the determination to fight. She marched straight to the reception desk, slammed her hand on the marble counter, and shouted, "Tell Serena to come down here. I need to settle things with her face to face." The receptionist looked warily at the aggressive woman, trying to maintain her professionalism. "I apologize, miss. The CEO is in a crucial meeting and cannot see guests without an appointment. Please." Before the receptionist could finish, Chloe shrieked, drawing the attention of everyone in the lobby. "What meeting? She is hiding from me. Serena Sterling, come out here and look. You call yourself a corporate CEO, but you cannot even keep your own husband. And now you resort to bullying a fragile, pregnant woman like me? If you have the guts, come down here and face me." The commotion echoed all the way up to the mezzanine, where Serena stood observing with her assistant and Marcus, the head of security. She looked down at the whispering crowd, the corner of her lips twitching into a contemptuous smirk. She had been waiting for this moment. Chloe's sheer stupidity was the ultimate trump card she needed to end this marriage with absolute finality. Serena adjusted the lapels of her suit and slowly descended the grand carpeted staircase. The rhythmic, authoritative click of her stilettos against the steps caused the crowd to part automatically, making way for the queen of this castle. Seeing Serena appear, Chloe lunged forward but was immediately blocked by 2 security guards. She pointed a finger right at Serena's face, crocodile tears beginning to fall. "Serena, let Lucas go. He told me living with you is like living in hell. You are a dictator. You are cold-blooded. You treat him like dirt. Now I am carrying his child. This baby needs a father. If you cannot give birth, let someone else do it. Stop selfishly clinging to a meaningless title." Serena stood facing Chloe, barely 2 steps away. She crossed her arms over her chest, her voice echoing through the vast lobby. Are you done? Coming to my company to cause a scene, slandering my reputation. Who do you think you are? A homewrecker who destroys another woman's family actually dares to stand here and preach morality to me? Overwhelmed by Serena's imposing presence, Chloe's embarrassment turned into fury. She wrestled free from the guard's grip and suddenly lunged forward, swinging her hand and slapping Serena hard across the face. A sharp, deafening smack rang out, plunging the entire lobby into dead silence. The red imprint of 5 fingers bloomed across Serena's left cheek. She did not dodge. She had purposely taken the hit. Her hair was slightly messed up, but her eyes were burning with hellfire. Having delivered the slap, Chloe began to tremble, realizing she had just committed an unforgivable offense. She backed away, stammering, It was your fault. You pushed me." Serena slowly reached up and wiped away the bead of blood trickling from the corner of her mouth. She did not strike back immediately. She pulled out her phone and hit a speed dial. Her voice, as cold as ice, rang out clearly in the silent room. "Lucas Vance, get down to the lobby this instant. Bring your corporate ID and your company seal. If you are not here in 3 minutes, do not blame me for being ruthless." 3 minutes passed, feeling like a century. The elevator doors slid open, and Lucas bolted out in a panic, his tie askew. Seeing the chaotic scene, his wife with a swollen, slapped cheek, and his mistress crying hysterically, he froze in his tracks. Serena pointed to her own face and asked Lucas, her voice razor-sharp, "Take a good look at this. Your mistress just assaulted me right in the lobby of my own company. What are you going to do about it?" Lucas looked at Chloe, then at Serena. Driven by the instinct of a cowardly man desperately trying to protect his fragile ego, he stepped toward Chloe and turned to his wife. "Serena, she is pregnant. Her hormones are unstable. You must have said something to provoke her, right? You are an adult. Why are you stooping to her level? Just go back to your office. Let me take her home." Lucas's response was the straw that broke the camel's back. It was the final swing of the blade, severing whatever lingering affection remained. Serena burst into loud laughter, a bitter, yet intensely liberating laugh. "Good. Very good. Thank you for your answer, Lucas. It removes any last trace of hesitation." Serena stopped laughing. Her face hardened, exuding a level of cruelty no one had ever seen. She signaled Marcus. "Hold Lucas down. Make him keep his eyes wide open and watch." Marcus and 2 heavily built security guards immediately stepped forward, twisting Lucas's arms behind his back and forcing him to his knees, his face turned toward Chloe. Lucas screamed, "What are you doing? Let me go! I am the managing director. I am the CEO's husband. Serena, have you lost your mind?" Serena did not even spare him a glance. She stepped right in front of Chloe. The girl was completely drained of color, trembling and backing away, but 2 female security guards firmly clamped down on her arms. Serena looked straight into Chloe's eyes, her voice monotone but chilling to the bone. "You called me a dictator. Fine. Today, I will show you what a true dictator looks like. You used this mouth to insult me. You used this hand to strike me. Therefore, I will return the favor 100-fold. She turned and issued an order to the female guards. "Slap her across the mouth, 100 times. If you miss a single count, I am docking your pay. Slap her until she finally understands her place." "Yes, Miss Sterling." The muscular female security guard did not hesitate. Smack. The first slap landed so hard that Chloe's head snapped to the side, and fresh blood instantly spilled from the corner of her mouth. She screamed in agony, trying to thrash around, but she could not escape the ironclad grip. 2, 3, 4. The rhythmic, brutal sounds of slapping echoed across the grand lobby. Every slap was a declaration of Serena's absolute authority. None of the surrounding employees dared to utter a single word. Some turned their faces away in fear, but the majority felt a deep sense of satisfaction seeing this brazen mistress face the consequences. Seeing his lover being beaten until her face swelled, Lucas screamed in sheer desperation. "Serena, stop it! She is carrying my child. You are a monster." Serena walked over to Lucas and looked down at him with utter disdain. "A monster? When you took my money to fund your whoring, did you think you were a monster? When you let her come here to humiliate your wife, did you feel like a coward? Listen to me very carefully, Lucas." She stood up straight and made a resounding announcement to the entire staff. "As of this moment, Lucas Vance is officially terminated from his position as managing director of the subsidiary. I am revoking all his executive privileges, corporate credit cards, company vehicles, and corporate housing. He no longer has any affiliation with Sterling Enterprises. Marcus immediately yanked the corporate ID lanyard off Lucas's neck and threw it on the floor. Serena pulled a thick folder from her handbag and threw it directly at Lucas's face. The pristine white papers fluttered to the ground around him like morning snow. These are the divorce papers, already signed by me. Sign them right here, right now, and get the hell out of my property with your precious mistress. Splitting marital assets? In your dreams. With the evidence of adultery and corporate embezzlement I hold in my hands, you will be walking away with absolutely nothing. In fact, you will be walking away shouldering a massive debt. The guard's count stopped at the number 100. Chloe had already passed out. Her face was swollen beyond recognition, the corners of her mouth torn and bleeding. The guards let go, and she collapsed to the floor like a pile of wet mud. Lucas looked at the divorce papers on the floor, then at the tragic state of Chloe, and finally looked up at the arrogant, freezing Serena. He realized he had lost everything. Power, money, status all vanished into thin air in a single morning. Serena did not wait for his reaction. She turned her back and ordered corporate security to throw the two of them out of the building. From this day forward, they are permanently banned from this premises. If anyone dares to let them take half a step inside, consider that your resignation. With that, she strode toward the elevator, leaving behind the chaotic whispers and the messy aftermath. When the elevator doors finally closed, masking her fierce, impenetrable exterior, Serena allowed herself to lean against the wall. Her slender shoulders trembled violently. A single tear, suppressed for so long, quietly rolled down her cheek, landing on her burning, injured skin. It was over. A rotten marriage was finally over. The door to the CEO's suite slammed shut, entirely cutting off the chaos and gossip outside. The vast space settled into a suffocating silence. Serena walked over to the floor-to-ceiling window, looking down at the traffic crawling like tiny ants at the base of the tower. Her hands were still shaking slightly, not out of fear, but from the aftershock of unleashing rage she had suppressed for far too long. She pulled a slim cigarette from her desk drawer, placing it between two fingers, but did not light it. She had quit smoking 3 years ago, ever since that miscarriage, because Lucas said he wanted a child, and she needed to protect her health. Looking back now, that sacrifice seemed utterly laughable. A timid knock sounded at the door. Her assistant walked in, holding a thick stack of documents and a tablet displaying a bleeding red stock chart. Miss Sterling, the news about this morning has gone viral on social media. Our corporate stock is showing signs of a sharp drop. The shareholders are calling non-stop demanding an explanation. The board of directors has called an emergency meeting for 2:00 p.m. today. Serena turned around and tossed the unlit cigarette into the trash can. Her face had regained its usual icy composure, her sharp eyes showing no ripples of panic. Inform the PR department. At noon today, I will host an online press conference. Draft a press release stating clearly that Lucas Vance was fired due to severe violations of corporate financial policies. The personal drama was merely the final straw. As for the shareholders, if they want a fire sale on their shares, let them. I will buy back every single one at rock-bottom prices. The assistant stared at the woman in front of her in shock. Amidst this raging inferno, not only was she not panicking, but she was raising the stakes. Buying back stock right now was practically betting her entire fortune on an unknown future. What are you standing there for? Go do it. Serena's authoritative tone snapped the assistant out of her daze. She nodded frantically and rushed out. The press conference proceeded exactly as planned. Serena appeared on screen in a sharp black suit, her makeup light but projecting an aura of untouchable power. She did not dodge. She did not deflect. Ladies and gentlemen, Sterling Enterprises operates on merit and transparency. Mr. Lucas Vance personally engaged in financial fraud, causing a loss of corporate assets, and violated professional ethics. My decision to terminate him was a necessary action to protect the interests of our shareholders and employees. Regarding my marriage, I confirm that we are in the process of finalizing our divorce. Personal matters will not affect the operations of this corporation. Her ironclad statement managed to calm the public storm. The malicious comments calling her a cruel, vindictive wife were slowly drowned out by voices admiring the decisive ruthlessness of a powerful female leader. Meanwhile, on a desolate street corner, Lucas and Chloe stood shivering next to garbage bags filled with their belongings that had been tossed out of the Westchester estate. Credit cards frozen, cars repossessed, phone ringing non-stop with calls from debt collectors and former business partners from whom Lucas had borrowed money under the Sterling name. Chloe held her swollen, bruised cheek, her face stained with tears, looking at Lucas. Lucas, where do we go now? It hurts so much. I need to go to the hospital to check on the baby. Lucas, agitated because he couldn't hail a cab, turned to look at the pathetic state of his mistress. Disgust surged in his chest. If she had not been stupid enough to run to the company and make a scene, he would have had more time to hide his assets. Do you still have the nerve to complain? Who told you to go there? Who told you to hit her? Did you think she was some sick, declawed cat? Now look, we lost everything. Chloe stared in disbelief. The man who had sworn his eternal love to her just yesterday, promising her the life of a queen, was now cursing her out on the street. You are blaming me? You were the one who told me to go confront her so she would divorce you faster. Now that you have nothing, you're going to abandon me and your baby? Lucas pulled at his hair in frustration. He checked his wallet, finding only a few crumpled bills. He pulled them out and threw them at Chloe. Take this and go to the clinic yourself. Stop nagging. I need to figure out how to get some cash. You better make sure that fetus survives. That is the only leverage I have left to beg my parents in Ohio for help. With that, Lucas grabbed his duffel bag and walked away, leaving Chloe standing in the freezing wind, humiliated and in agonizing pain. A week later, the scandal at Sterling Enterprises began to stabilize. But the financial black hole Lucas left in the subsidiary was far worse than Serena had anticipated. Audit reports revealed that funds had been expertly siphoned into ghost accounts overseas. She needed an expert, someone with a cold mind and an iron fist, to clean up this mess. And the most highly recommended name in the industry was Julian Hayes. Julian Hayes, 32, was the mastermind behind the legendary Apex Capital, known in Wall Street circles as the surgeon for dying corporations. He was notoriously arrogant, highly selective with his clients, and charged astronomical consulting fees. Their first meeting took place in Serena's office. Exactly at 9:00 a.m., the door opened, and a man walked in. He wore a charcoal gray bespoke suit tailored to the millimeter, his tall, imposing figure and chiseled face looking like a Greek sculpture. His deep eyes, hidden behind gold-rimmed intellectual glasses, radiated an aura as sharp as a scalpel. Serena stood up and extended a hand professionally. Mr. Hayes, your reputation precedes you. Thank you for agreeing to come. Julian did not immediately shake her hand. His gaze swept rapidly over Serena, stopping at a small bandage on her finger, a cut from a wine glass she had accidentally broken the night before. The corner of his mouth ticked up in a smile tinged with mockery. Hello, Miss Sterling. I came purely out of curiosity. I wanted to see what the woman who ordered 100 slaps on her rival in broad daylight looks like. Serena's hand paused slightly in midair, but she quickly regained her composure. She pulled her hand back and gestured to the chair opposite her. Please, have a seat. I thought Mr. Hayes only cared about numbers. I didn't realize you were so interested in tabloid gossip. Julian sat down, crossing his legs casually, looking entirely at ease, as if he were in his own living room. Gossip affects brand value, and brand value is money. Miss Sterling, you won the marital battle, but you took a brutal loss on the financial scale. Have you calculated how many millions of dollars in stock value those 100 slaps cost you? Julian's brutally blunt way of speaking made Serena slightly uncomfortable. She poured a cup of Earl Grey tea and set it down firmly in front of him. Money can be earned back, but trampled dignity cannot. I hired you to solve a financial crisis, not to teach me life lessons. Julian picked up the teacup, inhaled the aroma, and took a small sip. The way he looked at her shifted slightly, the teasing faded, replaced by serious appraisal. Fine. Feisty. I like working with people who are direct. I have reviewed the subsidiary's case files. Your ex-husband, Lucas, may have zero management skills, but his embezzlement tactics were quite clever. He layered a Ponzi scheme into shell projects. He set the teacup down and pulled a thick proposal out of his briefcase, sliding it towards Serena. This is the preliminary restructuring plan. I will purge the entire senior management of the subsidiary, cut all underperforming projects, and most importantly, track the offshore money flow. But I have a condition. Serena flipped through a few pages rapidly, her eyes lighting up with satisfaction. The man's analytical skills were truly razor-sharp, cutting straight to the core of the issue in no time. What condition? Name your commission fee. Julian shook his head, his long fingers tapping lightly on the desk. I do not lack money. My condition is that during my contract, you are not allowed to interfere with any of my personnel decisions, even if I fire your most trusted aides. He paused, a slight smirk playing on his lips. And you have to buy me dinner every time I hit a major milestone. I hate eating office takeout. Serena looked up, catching his deep, unreadable gaze. This request sounded bizarre coming from a corporate partner, but she didn't have time to overthink it. Deal. As long as you recover the funds and resurrect the subsidiary, forget dinner. I will make you an honorary board member. Julian stood up and buttoned his suit jacket. Keep the board seat. I hate the hassle. A pleasure doing business with you, miss. Sterling, tonight at 7:00 p.m. I will wait for you at the French restaurant downstairs. With that, he turned and walked out, leaving Serena sitting there with a mix of relief at finding a genius and an uneasy feeling that she had just stepped into some invisible trap. At the same time, in a rundown motel in a poor neighborhood of Queens, Lucas was sitting in front of a battered laptop. His eyes were bloodshot from lack of sleep and too much alcohol. The room was littered with instant ramen cups and empty beer bottles. He refused to accept defeat. He hated Serena for stripping him of everything, turning him from a respected managing director into an unemployed laughingstock. He hated her for backing him into a corner. His phone buzzed. It was an unknown number. Lucas hesitated for a moment before answering. Hello? Who is this? A deep, mocking voice came from the other end. Hello, Mr. CEO. Ah, wait. I guess it is just Lucas now. I represent Vanguard Holdings. My boss heard you were going through a rough patch and wanted to invite you to collaborate. Vanguard Holdings was Sterling Enterprises' direct competitor in the real estate sector. Lucas narrowed his eyes, his grip tightening on his phone. He knew this was an opportunity and a path of no return. Collaborate on what? I have nothing. What do you need from me? Information. My boss is very interested in the bidding files for the Westside development project that Serena is aggressively pursuing. I hear you were the one who helped draft the initial blueprint. Lucas let out a dark chuckle. Of course he knew it. He possessed all the data, the price ceilings, the floor limits, and the underground connections Serena had painstakingly built for that project. What is the price? A number large enough for you to pay off your debts and live comfortably for a few years. Plus, we will help you with one more thing. We will help you win back your reputation. Lucas went silent for a few seconds, a malicious glint flashing in his eyes. Deal. Where do we meet? After the secret meeting, Lucas returned to his motel with a briefcase full of cash and a despicable plan for revenge. He didn't just want money. He wanted Serena to taste pure agony. That night, social media exploded with a massive essay-length post on Lucas's personal accounts, accompanied by photos of him looking frail and sporting bandages. In the post, he played the role of a beaten-down husband living under the massive shadow of a tyrannical wife. He spun a tale that Serena was cold, heartless, prioritizing work over family, and constantly humiliating him and his working-class parents. He admitted that he was wrong to cheat, but claimed it was because he was so painfully lonely, craving the warmth of a family that his wife refused to give him. He even falsely accused Serena of using her corporate mafia connections to cut off all his avenues of survival post-divorce and of hiring thugs to threaten him and Chloe. The post, fueled by Vanguard Holdings' dark PR money and ad algorithms, rapidly racked up millions of interactions. Public opinion began to shift. The crowd, inherently resentful of the wealthy and full of fake moralists, turned their guns on Serena. If a woman is that aggressive, no wonder her husband left her. 100 slaps? That is pure evil. Rich but morally bankrupt. She pushed him too far. Poor guy. The pressure must have been insane for him to seek comfort elsewhere. Serena sat in her home office, holding a glass of red wine, scrolling through the vicious comments constantly popping up on her screen. The glow from the monitor cast a terrifying stillness over her face. Julian Hayes walked in without knocking. He went straight to her desk and tossed a file folder down. Your ex-husband's counterattack is pretty decent, playing on the crowd's pity. Your stock is definitely hitting the floor again tomorrow morning. What is your plan? Cry? Issue a tearful apology? Or take the beating in silence? Serena looked up, took a sip of wine, and a slight smile graced her red lips. Apologize? That is the tactic of the weak. He wants to play the victim? I will let him finish his performance. But I am the director of this stage. She set the wineglass down and looked straight at Julian. Run a check on his accounts. A man drowning in debt suddenly has the cash to hire a PR team and run targeted ads. Someone is funding this. I want to know who is pulling the strings of this puppet. Julian smiled, his eyes showing clear admiration. Very smart. I already tracked a massive wire transfer sent from a Vanguard Holdings shell company into a new offshore account. Lucas opened this afternoon. He sold you out. He sold the Westside Development Project. Serena was not surprised in the slightest. It was as if she had predicted Lucas's sheer depravity. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out toward the distant Vanguard Holdings tower, which was fully lit. The Westside Project. He thinks that is a piece of premium meat? It is actually a trap I laid 3 months ago just to see who the traitor was. Lucas, you didn't just lose your wife. This time, you will lose your freedom. She turned back, her eyes burning as she looked at Julian. Prepare the lawsuit for corporate espionage and theft of trade secrets, and contact the network anchors. I want to do a live interview. It is time to drop the curtain on this play. At midnight, a sudden New York downpour hammered against the glass windows of Serena's private library. The vast room was engulfed in the faint scent of sandalwood. The warm yellow light was not enough to dispel the cold radiating from the thick stacks of documents on her desk. Serena sat deeply in her armchair, massaging her temples, which were throbbing violently. The doorbell rang, shattering the silence. She glanced at the security camera monitor. A black Bentley was parked outside the gates, and standing in the freezing rain, holding a long black umbrella, was none other than Julian Hayes. She pressed the button to open the gates, silently wondering what he was doing here at this hour. 5 minutes later, the butler escorted Julian into the library. He walked in, bringing the chill of the rain and an attitude so effortlessly cool it was almost infuriating. He placed his leather briefcase on the coffee table and casually sat down opposite her without waiting for an invitation. Does Mr. Hayes make a habit of visiting single women in the middle of the night? Serena asked, her voice laced with sarcasm, though her eyes remained guarded. Julian took off his gold-rimmed glasses and used a handkerchief to wipe away the tiny raindrops clinging to the lenses. His movements were slow and elegant, like a nobleman enjoying tea rather than a midnight intruder. I am here to save you from an impending disaster, Miss Sterling. Or, more accurately, I am here to make sure my investment of time in you doesn't go down the drain. He pushed the briefcase toward her. Open it. A belated breakup gift from your ex-husband. Serena frowned and reached over to open the case. Inside was a stack of paparazzi photos and a USB drive containing audio recordings. She picked up the photos. They showed Lucas sitting in a discreet, upscale bar, across from the executive assistant to the CEO of Vanguard Holdings, her sworn enemy. The two of them were exchanging a blue folder. The blue folder, that is the classified file for the Westside Development Project, Serena muttered, her fingers gripping the photo so tightly the edges crinkled. The Westside Project was her blood, sweat, and tears for the past 2 years. It was the trump card that would elevate Sterling Thanks for one spot in real estate. Every detail regarding bidding limits, blueprints, and zoning had been top secret, and Lucas dared to sell it. How much did he sell it for? She asked, her voice deadpan, completely devoid of emotion. Julian smirked, a smile full of contempt for a petty man. $7 million. A dirt-cheap price for 2 years of your blood and sweat. He needs cash immediately to pay off his loan sharks and keep his demanding mistress happy. Vanguard wired a $2 million advance to his offshore account this afternoon. Serena tossed the photos back onto the table, leaned back in her chair, and closed her eyes. The anger had passed, replaced by icy calculation. She had guessed Lucas would betray her, but she had not expected him to act so fast and so stupidly. What do you think I should do? Block the transaction? Or sue him immediately? Julian shook his head. He stood up, walked over to the liquor cabinet in the corner of the room, and poured himself a glass of red wine. He swirled it gently, watching the liquid catch the light. That is what average people do. If you block him this time, he will find another way. A mad dog backed into a corner will bite blindly. The best strategy is to let him bite into a poisoned piece of meat. He walked back and set the wine glass down in front of Serena. Play along, let him sell that file. In fact, we should help him sell it for a higher price. But the contents inside, we will alter them slightly. Serena opened her eyes, looking deep into Julian's dark, abyssal gaze. She understood exactly what he meant. Turning real intel into fake intel, lure Vanguard into a fatal investment trap, while simultaneously locking Lucas into an inescapable charge of major fraud and corporate espionage. The two of them began working immediately. Julian sat beside her. The scent of sandalwood from him mixed with her faint perfume, creating a strangely intimate atmosphere. They worked together to alter the technical specs in the Phantom project, calculating every move Vanguard would make, anticipating every reaction from Lucas. Time ticked by. The clock struck 3:00 a.m. Serena felt her eyelids growing heavy. She had barely slept all week, dealing with the PR crisis and cleaning up the mess at the subsidiary. Exhaustion washed over her like a tidal wave, drowning her iron will. She rested her head on the desk, intending to take a quick nap while Julian reviewed the final numbers. When Julian looked up, he saw the powerful woman who breathed fire during the day now curled up, sleeping soundly like a small cat. Her raven hair fell across her face, revealing a faint, faded scar near the corner of her mouth, a testament to the grueling years she had spent building her empire. He looked at her, his normally sharp eyes softening considerably. He had never seen a woman so stubbornly resilient. Betrayed by her husband, cheated on, mocked by society, yet she had never shed a single tear in front of others. Only in deep sleep did her features reveal a heartbreaking vulnerability and loneliness. Julian took off his suit jacket and gently draped it over Serena's shoulders. His movements were incredibly light, terrified of waking her. But the moment the warmth touched her, Serena jolted awake. Her defense mechanisms were too strong. She stared blankly at the jacket on her shoulders, then at Julian, who was standing inches away. I fell asleep. I am sorry, Serena stammered, moving to hand the jacket back. Julian held her shoulders, pressing her gently back into the chair. Keep it on. It is freezing in here. If you get sick, who is going to pay my consulting fees? The plan is finished. I am leaving. Get some sleep. With that, he grabbed his briefcase, turned, and walked out without looking back. Serena sat there, her hands gripping the lapels of the jacket, which still carried the warmth of a strange man. A strange sensation swelled in her chest, a tiny thread of safety slipping through the storm of her life. This was the first time in years someone had cared whether she was cold, instead of asking how much money she had made. Outside, the rain had stopped. But inside Serena's heart, a seed of trust had begun to sprout amidst the ashes of her past. The New York real estate market was once again churning. A rumor spread at lightning speed that Sterling Enterprises was facing a severe liquidity crisis, risking default on short-term debts. At a discreet coffee shop hidden in the city, Lucas read the news on his phone, a triumphant smirk twisting his lips. He believed karma had finally come for Serena, and her downfall was his chance to rise. Sitting across from him was a middle-aged man claiming to represent a shadow hedge fund looking to partner with him to snatch the West Side Project from Sterling. In reality, this man was an actor hired by Julian. Mr. Vance, the intel you provided is highly valuable, but to get in on this game with Vanguard, you need matching capital. We cannot shoulder all the risk. Lucas swallowed hard, blinded by greed. He knew the West Side Project was a goldmine. If he could pool his money with Vanguard to crush Serena, he wouldn't just pay off his debts. He would become a genuine tycoon. How much do I need? The man held up 4 fingers. $4 million. If you can bring this capital, plus the classified files you possess, we guarantee you 20% equity in the new venture. Expected return is tenfold. $4 million. That number used to be nothing to Lucas, but now his assets were entirely frozen. However, his hatred and desperate need to prove himself stripped him of all rationality. Deal. Give me 3 days. I will get it. Lucas left the coffee shop and threw himself into a frantic scramble for cash. He couldn't go to the banks, and his old friends avoided him like the plague. Out of desperation, he turned to the mafia loan sharks. He mortgaged his parents' home in Ohio, took out high-interest loans, and conned a few former contacts, barely scraping together $4 million. Meanwhile, in the rundown Queens motel they were temporarily renting, Chloe sat filing her nails. Her swollen face from the slap had bruised into a nasty purple but was no longer grossly disfigured. Seeing Lucas return, she immediately lunged at him, her voice shrill. "Where's the money? You promised to give me money today for the plastic surgeon and my prenatal care. The doctor said I need supplement injections, or the baby won't make it." Lucas, highly stressed from the massive debt he had just taken on, felt Chloe's demands hit his brain like a hammer. He shoved her away and walked straight to the closet to pack some clothes. "Money, money, money. Is that all you care about? I am working on something huge. Wait until I win this deal. You can bathe in cash for all I care. Now shut up." Chloe didn't let it go. She clung to his arm, screaming, "Where are you taking that money? Are you going to leave me and my baby to starve? I lost all my dignity. I was beaten half to death because of you, and now you are bailing? Give me the money." Smack! Lucas swung his hand and slapped Chloe fiercely. This slap was not born of jealousy or a desire to protect. It was a pure manifestation of a loser venting his rage on someone weaker than him. Shut your mouth. Look at yourself in the mirror. You look like a ghost, whining all day. If you weren't stupid enough to go to the office and cause a scene, I wouldn't be in this mess. Get out of my way and let me work. Chloe collapsed onto the floor, holding her face and sobbing uncontrollably. She looked at the man she once thought was her safe harbor, now revealed in his true form, an abusive, selfish, cruel monster. A delayed sense of regret crept into her heart, but it was far too late. The next day, Lucas eagerly brought the $4 million to his new partners, signing an investment contract filled with ironclad legal clauses that he didn't even bother to read closely. He gleefully believed he was about to flip the board and see Serena crawling on her knees begging for mercy. In the Sterling CEO suite, Serena and Julian stared at the computer screen displaying the transaction confirmation. Lucas's $4 million had flowed into a ghost account, which would then be routed back to cover the deficit he had caused the subsidiary. The fish took the bait, Julian said, twirling an expensive fountain pen between his fingers. Serena looked out the window, where the sky was turning a stormy gray. That $4 million is mafia loan money. When Vanguard discovers the project files are fake, the project gets suspended and the capital burns. He will be facing the wrath of both the mob and the federal authorities. Aren't you happy? You got your revenge, Julian asked, looking at her. Serena shook her head, her gaze distant. Not happy. Just sad. Sad because I once loved and trusted a man stupid enough to fall for this. 2 days after Lucas dumped his entire borrowed fortune into the investment trap, Chloe was rushed to the ER in critical condition. The slap from Lucas, combined with extreme stress and malnutrition, had caused a severe hemorrhage. She was losing the baby. Lying in a noisy, standard ward reeking of antiseptic and crying children, Chloe felt more alone than ever. Lucas didn't show up. He was busy running around greasing palms and had turned off his phone. She had no money to pay the hospital bills. The nurses kept coming in, reminding her with growing irritation. In her absolute despair, she shakily dialed the only person she thought might help, or at least pity her. Serena Sterling. Half an hour later, the door to the ward opened, and the noisy room suddenly went dead silent. Serena walked in, exuding luxury and emotional distance, like a goddess descending into a chaotic mortal realm. She wore a tailored emerald green sheath dress with a white trench coat draped over her shoulders, carrying a handbag whose price tag could cover the medical bills for the entire floor. Seeing her, tears welled up in Chloe's eyes. She tried to sit up, but a sharp cramp forced her back onto the pillows with a wince. Miss Sterling. Serena did not approach the bed. She stood at a distance, far enough to avoid the smell of medicine and despair. She took off her sunglasses, looking at Chloe with eyes devoid of joy or sorrow. Why did you call me here? To show off the injuries my ex-husband gave you? Chloe burst into agonizing, heart-wrenching sobs. I am sorry. I know I was wrong. He tricked me. He hit me. He left me here to die. Please, please, help me just this once. I have no money for the bills. The doctor said if I don't get emergency surgery, I will die. Serena looked at the ruined young woman before her. Less than a month ago, she had arrogantly flaunted her pregnant belly at the corporate office, proudly bragging about true love. Now, she was nothing but a crushed flower tossed by the side of the road. Help you? Why should I help the person who destroyed my family? Do you think I am Mother Teresa? Chloe shook her head violently, her voice cracking. I know I don't deserve it. But the baby, it's Lucas's flesh and blood. You used to be his wife, Serena laughed, a chilling sound that sent a shiver down Chloe's spine. What does Lucas's flesh and blood have to do with me? Are you genuinely naive, or just playing dumb? Do you think Lucas is busy out there making money to take care of you and this baby? Serena pulled out her phone, opened a series of recent photos sent by her private investigator, and held the screen up for Chloe to see. Take a good look. Here is your beloved, the father of the child in your womb. On the screen was a photo of Lucas, with his arm wrapped around the waist of a plump, heavily jeweled woman in her 50s at a high-end restaurant. He was laughing cheerfully, pouring her wine, his eyes flirting intensely, showing absolutely zero concern for his hospitalized mistress. He is busy hunting his new prey, a wealthy widow who just inherited a fortune from her late husband. He needs money to pay his debts. And you, Chloe? You have outlived your usefulness. He is actively looking for a way to kick you to the curb. Chloe stared blankly at the photo, her eyes wide with terror. The brutal, naked truth shattered the last fragile sliver of hope she had left. It turned out she was never his true love. She was just a tool, a toy. And when she broke, he was ready to toss her aside for a more valuable toy. No, it can't be, he swore. You actually believed the vows a man makes in bed? Serena put her phone away, her voice turning to steel. You reap what you sow. This is the price you pay for your illegitimate greed. I didn't come here to pay your bills. I came to show you the true face of the man you stole from me. Congratulations. You won. You own him completely now. With that, Serena turned on her heel and walked away. The sound of her stilettos hitting the floor was as cold as a hammer striking nails into a coffin. Miss Sterling, save me! Chloe's weak cry echoed from behind, but it did not slow Serena's steps. She walked out of the ward, taking a deep breath of the air in the corridor. She felt no satisfaction, only exhaustion. Women like Chloe were to blame, but they were also incredibly pathetic. They wagered their youth and beauty on the hearts of men, only to lose their entire lives in the gamble. Back in the ward, Chloe clutched her stomach. A violent cramp hit her, and blood soaked through the stark white hospital sheets. She passed out in absolute, terrifying isolation, taking her delayed regret and hatred with her into the abyss. A week after Lucas dumped his entire $4 million loan into the Vanguard partnership, a shocking piece of news hit the New York real estate market. The city planning department officially released the revised geological survey map for the West Side Zone. The premium land that Vanguard and Lucas had just poured massive capital into was situated directly above a severe geological fault line, resulting in an immediate ban on all high-rise construction. The news dropped like a nuclear bomb on the stock exchange. Vanguard Holdings stock plummeted into a freefall, hitting the circuit breakers within 15 minutes of the opening bell. In the Vanguard executive suite, the atmosphere was suffocating. The CEO smashed a crystal ashtray on the floor, his screams echoing down the hall. Who vetted this file? Who told me this was a classified internal leak from Sterling? Land you cannot build on is nothing but a garbage dump. Millions in deposits, plus millions more in lobbying. It has all gone up in smoke. His assistant stood trembling nearby, stuttering out an explanation. Sir, it was Lucas Vance. He guaranteed the intel was 100% accurate. He said it was 2 years of Serena Sterling's hard work. We fell for a trap. Serena must have known about the fault line early on, so she created a fake project to bait us. At that exact moment, Lucas was sitting in an empty cafe, his hands and feet turning to ice as he watched the breaking news on the wall-mounted TV. The broadcast looped footage of the barren lot, with bold red text reading, "Construction banned." He dropped his phone. The screen shattered against the floor. $4 million. That was money obtained by mortgaging his parents' house, and money borrowed from the mob with astronomical interest rates. He had dreamt of tenfold returns, of the day he would march back and laugh in Serena's face. But now, everything was zero. Plus a mountain of debt he couldn't pay off if he worked like a slave for the rest of his life. His shattered phone vibrated violently. It was the loan sharks. It was Vanguard. The ringtone sounded like the Grim Reaper calling his name. Lucas grabbed his head and bolted out of the cafe like a madman. He had nowhere to go, only the instinct to run from this brutal reality. In stark contrast to the chaos outside, the atmosphere at Sterling Enterprises headquarters was filled with restrained jubilation. Serena stood by the floor-to-ceiling window, looking out as the city lights flickered on. She took a sip of red wine, the bitter and sweet notes blending perfectly on her tongue. Julian stood beside her, also holding a glass. He looked at her, his eyes failing to hide his deep admiration mixed with a complex emotion. A brilliant move. Using your enemy's greed to bury your enemy. You turned a useless patch of dirt into a graveyard for Vanguard and Lucas. Miss Sterling, you have broadened my horizons. Serena turned to look at him, the corner of her lips curling into a rare smile. It was all thanks to your flawless coordination, Mr. Hayes. Without your intelligence network and perfect script, Lucas wouldn't have trusted it enough to dump his life savings into it. Julian stepped slightly closer, the scent of sandalwood overpowering the aroma of wine. He raised his glass, clinking it gently against hers. To us. But I have to be honest. You are the most ruthless woman I have ever met. You didn't just take your money back. You obliterated your ex-husband's future. Serena didn't dodge his gaze. She looked straight into those deep dark eyes, her voice calm but unwavering. Ruthless? If I had lost today, the person standing here crying would be me. And Lucas would not have shown me an ounce of mercy. The corporate world is a battlefield. Showing mercy to your enemy is cruelty to yourself. As a risk management expert, you should understand that better than anyone. Julian chuckled, a deep, chesty laugh. He leaned in and whispered in her ear, so close she could feel the heat of his breath against her skin. I do. I understand perfectly. It is precisely that cold, calculated ruthlessness that makes you so fatally attractive, Serena. Julian's words caused Serena's heart to skip a beat. She took a step back, trying to maintain her icy facade to hide the sudden flutter in her chest. How long had it been since someone called her attractive? People only praised her competence, her power, or criticized her for being stiff and dry. Tonight is the internal victory party. Everyone is waiting in the banquet hall. We should head down, Serena said, deflecting the conversation, setting her glass down, and walking quickly toward the door. Julian watched her slender, straight-back retreat. His eyes darkened, his smile fading, replaced by profound contemplation. He realized he was crossing the line from business partner to something else. And this woman was more dangerous than any project he had ever undertaken. In the banquet hall, Sterling employees raised their glasses to celebrate the company's spectacular escape. Serena stood at the podium, bathed in brilliant spotlights. She announced massive bonuses for the entire staff and unveiled the new development plan. Below her, the applause was thunderous. But as she stepped down from the stage, a wave of dizziness hit her. She grabbed the edge of a table, trying to take deep breaths. The consecutive sleepless nights, the PR pressure, the sheer stress of the chess match with Lucas, it had drained her to the core. Now that the dust had settled, her body was going on strike. Julian, who had been quietly observing her from afar, instantly noticed something was wrong. He strode rapidly toward her, shoving aside the crowd of well-wishers. Serena, are you all right? Julian caught her arm just as she swayed, about to collapse. The heat from his steady hand radiated through the thin silk of her dress. Serena looked up at him, her vision blurring. She tried to force a smile and shook her head. I am fine. Just a little dizzy from the lights. Don't alarm everyone. But Julian did not listen to her. He touched her forehead and immediately frowned. She was burning up like a furnace. You have a high fever and you say you are fine? You are shivering. Without waiting for Serena to object, Julian bent down and decisively scooped her up into his arms, right in front of hundreds of stunned employees. Julian, what are you doing? Put me down. People are staring, Serena protested weakly. Her face flushing red, whether from the fever or embarrassment, she couldn't tell. She was the CEO, her image was always ironclad and untouchable. She couldn't let herself be carried like a princess like this. Quiet. If you keep struggling, I will kiss you right here to make you shut up. Julian's half-joking, half-serious threat made Serena freeze. She resigned herself to burying her face in his chest, listening clearly to his strong, steady heartbeat. Julian carried her out to his car, placed her in the passenger seat, buckled her in carefully, and sped off into the night, heading straight to Manhattan's top private hospital. In the ER, the doctor diagnosed Serena with an acute viral fever combined with severe physical exhaustion due to overwork and prolonged stress. She needed to be admitted immediately for observation and IV fluids. As the fever peaked, Serena fell into a delirium. She lay on the crisp white hospital bed, her hands thrashing weakly in the air as if trying to grab something invisible. Mom, don't go. It hurts. Dad, please don't leave me alone. Her broken, tearful cries tore at the heart. Julian sat beside the bed, gripping her cold hand. He knew Serena's parents had died in a tragic car accident when she was just 20, leaving her alone to shoulder the entire corporation while fending off greedy relatives. It turned out that beneath the invincible, ironclad exterior hid an isolated, deeply scarred child. I am here. No one is leaving you. Be a good girl. Go to sleep. Julian whispered, his hand gently stroking her sweat-dampened hair. He used a warm towel to wipe her face and hands throughout the night, not sleeping for a single second. Looking at the powerful woman now as fragile as a kitten in his hands, Julian's heart of stone suddenly melted. He realized this feeling wasn't just pity, it was heartache. It hurt to see her forced to endure so much that she never should have had to bear. The next morning, the soft sunlight filtering through the blinds woke Serena up. She opened her eyes, feeling a splitting headache, but her body felt much lighter. She looked around the luxurious VIP suite, the memories of last night rushing back like a slow-motion film. On the bedside table sat a thermal food container and a yellow sticky note. Serena picked up the note. The handwriting was bold and masculine. I had my private chef make truffle chicken consommé. Finish it before you get discharged. I handled your company affairs. Just rest. Stop trying to be Wonder Woman. The world will not collapse if you take one day off. Julian. Serena opened the container. The rich, savory aroma drifted up. She took a spoonful. The delicate, comforting flavor instantly warmed her empty stomach. Her nose suddenly stung. How long had it been since she had a hot meal prepared by someone else when she was sick? Whenever she fell ill in the past, Lucas would just tell her, take some pills, and then bury himself in video games or go out drinking. Julian's meticulous quiet care was like a refreshing stream flowing into her barren heart, beginning to heal the cracks. The door opened, and Julian walked in. He had changed into fresh clothes, looking as sharp and handsome as ever, though his eyes carried faint dark circles. You are awake. How are you feeling? He asked, his voice as natural as if taking care of her was a given. Serena set the soup bowl down and looked at him, feeling slightly shy but deeply sincere. I feel much better. Thank you. For everything. Did I say anything crazy last night? Julian pulled up a chair, a teasing smirk on his lips. You did. You cried and begged me to buy you candy, and promised to give me half your assets if I stayed with you. Serena blushed, glaring at him. Don't make things up. I would never say that. Julian laughed out loud, his laughter brightening the gloomy hospital room. I'm kidding. You just called out for your parents. Serena, if you ever get too tired in the future, lean on me. I may not be your parents, but my shoulders are broad enough for you to rest on, free of charge. In that moment, their eyes met, and the air seemed to stop. Serena felt an electric current run down her spine. She knew, deep down, she had truly fallen for this man. 3 days after being discharged, Serena threw herself back into work. Though Julian had told her to rest longer, she couldn't sit still with so much left to handle post-scandal. Late that night, Serena left the office. The underground parking garage was desolate. The cold, white neon lights cast eerie shadows on the gray concrete. The click of her heels echoed in the deafening silence. As she approached her car, a dark figure suddenly lunged from behind a concrete pillar. Serena. The hoarse, deranged scream made Serena jump. She turned around. Standing before her was Lucas. But this was not the polished, arrogant Lucas of the past. He was disheveled, unkempt, reeking of sweat and garbage. His bloodshot eyes were filled with the manic gleam of absolute desperation and hatred. Lucas, what are you doing here? Where is security? Serena backed up, secretly reaching into her purse for her pepper spray. Lucas let out a psychotic laugh, sounding like metal grinding together. Security? I've been hiding here since the afternoon. Serena, you ruined me, and you're still living the high life? You tricked me. You made me lose everything. Drowning in debt? Hunted by the mob. It is all your fault. He stepped closer. In his right hand, a hunting knife gleamed under the harsh lights. Calm down. It was your own greed. You dug your own grave. I warned you, Serena said, trying to keep her voice steady to buy time while her eyes darted around for an escape route. Shut up. I don't want your lectures. Write me a check for $7 million right now, or I will kill you and then myself. I have no way out anyway. Lucas screamed, lunging forward and grabbing her collar, slamming her against the car. The cold blade pressed against her throat. Serena held her breath, choking on the stench of alcohol and filth radiating from him. Lucas, you are insane. Even if you kill me, you won't escape. Let go. She struggled, using all her strength to kick his leg hard. Lucas hissed in pain and stumbled back a step, but he wildly swung the knife in a frenzy. You be times chi. You dare hit me? I'll kill you. The blade slashed across Serena's left arm, slicing a deep gash. Bright red blood immediately sprayed out, staining the sleeve of her white silk blouse. Serena cried out in agony and collapsed to the ground. Seeing the blood, Lucas went entirely feral. He was about to lunge illy, another stab, when the roar of a sports engine tore through the garage. A sleek car slammed on its brakes, tires screeching, stopping mere inches away. The door flew open, and Julian burst out like a hurricane. Seeing Serena clutching her bleeding arm, his eyes erupted in a furious inferno unlike anything he had ever shown. You son of a B-times titch, you touched her? Julian didn't waste a second with words. He unleashed a brutal, devastating kick directly into Lucas's stomach, sending him flying backward to slam into a concrete pillar. The knife clattered far away. Lucas groaned in pain, clutching his gut, trying to scramble up, but Julian was already on him. He grabbed Lucas by the collar and began raining merciless punches down on his face. Smack! Smash! Crack! Every punch carried unparalleled fury. Blood poured from Lucas's nose and mouth. The sickening crunch of a breaking nose echoed sharply in the garage. Do you have a death wish? I gave you a way out, and you came back to bite her? Julian roared. He pulled his arm back for a lethal strike that might have killed the pathetic man. Suddenly, a weak hand grabbed the cuff of his trousers. Julian, stop. If you kill him, you'll go to prison. Serena's trembling voice yanked Julian back to reality. He dropped Lucas, who was now just a whimpering, bleeding mess on the floor. Julian spun around and dropped to his knees, scooping Serena up. Looking at the deep gash pouring blood down her arm, his heart twisted in agony. He ripped off his silk tie, binding it tightly above the wound as a tourniquet. Hold on, I am getting you to the hospital right now. Don't be scared, I am here. By now, the wail of police sirens and the rapid footsteps of the security team echoed through the garage. Marcus, the head of security, led the charge. Seeing the bloody scene, the color drained from his face. Arrest him. Hand him over to the NYPD. Tell the captain I will deal with this personally. I want him rotting in a cell for attempted murder. Julian issued the cold command, looking at Lucas as if he were a repulsive insect. Then, he picked Serena up and placed her gently into his car. On the way to the hospital, Serena rested her head against his shoulder, her consciousness slipping due to blood loss. She felt his hands trembling as they gripped hers. The man who was always cold and logical in the boardroom was now utterly terrified for her. Julian, thank you for saving me. Again, don't speak. Save your strength. If anything happens to you, I will level this entire city. His domineering yet terrified words were the last thing she heard before plunging into darkness. But in that darkness, she was no longer afraid, because she knew that when she woke up, he would still be there, shielding her from the storm. The heavy smell of antiseptic in the minor surgery room made Serena wrinkle her nose. She sat on the hospital bed, the left sleeve of her blouse cut away to reveal the 4-inch gash, which was still oozing blood. The attending physician, an older man with reading glasses, held a suturing needle, sighing as he worked. The cut is very deep. It will likely leave a keloid scar if you don't take strict care of it. Julian stood leaning against the wall a few feet away. He had discarded his blood-stained suit jacket and was down to his white dress shirt, the sleeves rolled up to the elbows, revealing the defined veins on his muscular forearms. His eyes were glued to every single stitch piercing Serena's flesh. His jaw was clenched so tight it looked as if he was the one being sewn up. Serena bit her lip to keep from crying out. She hated showing weakness, especially in front of Julian. But as the final stitch was pulled tight, she couldn't stop a shuddering breath from escaping, cold sweat drenching her forehead. The doctor finished bandaging her, gave a few instructions, and left the room. The two of them were alone. Julian walked over, took a tissue, and wiped the sweat from her brow. His touch was incredibly gentle, a stark contrast to the brutal violence he had unleashed on Lucas just an hour ago. Does it hurt much? He asked, his voice low and raspy. Serena shook her head, forcing a weak smile. It's fine. Just a flesh wound. Thank you for getting there in time. If it weren't for you, I'd probably still be lying on that freezing concrete. Julian didn't answer immediately. He stared at the stark white bandage on her arm, his eyes turning dangerously dark. Your estate is not safe right now. The police have locked down the crime scene, and reporters are swarming the gates looking for a scoop. You cannot go back there tonight. Serena sighed. She knew he was right. That house was nothing but a nightmare filled with horrible memories of Lucas now. I will check into a hotel for a few days. Absolutely not. Julian cut her off firmly. Lucas is arrested, but he still has ties to loan sharks. Who knows if they'll come looking for you to settle his debts? Hotels are not secure enough. You are coming to my place. Serena looked up, her eyes wide with surprise. Your place? That isn't very appropriate. We are business partners. People will talk. Julian leaned down, planting both hands on the edge of the bed, trapping her within his arms. He was so close she could see her reflection in his dark eyes. Do you think I care about gossip? Or are you afraid of what I might do? Look at you right now. Your arm is sliced open, and you are pale as a ghost. Even if I were a beast, I wouldn't be in the mood. His half-joking remark made Serena blush. She knew she couldn't win an argument against this man. Moreover, deep down, she desperately craved a safe haven, a place with genuine human warmth, not four cold hotel walls. The sports car sped through the night, bringing them to Manhattan's most exclusive penthouse overlooking the Hudson River. Julian's apartment occupied the entire top floor, designed in a minimalist style dominated by slate grays. Though the decor was simple, everything screamed refined luxury. He helped her onto the sofa and went into the kitchen. A moment later, he returned with a glass of warm milk and a plate of sliced fruit. "Drink this. It will warm you up." "You didn't have dinner, did you?" Serena held the glass, the warmth spreading from her palms through her body. She looked around the apartment. A strange sense of peace settled into her heart. This place, though exuding a cold, masculine vibe, made her feel safer than anywhere else in the world. "Why are you so good to me?" Serena blurted out. The question had been haunting her for days. They were partners, acquaintances at best. His care had far exceeded normal boundaries. Julian sat on the opposite sofa, swirling a glass of red wine. He didn't look at her, gazing instead out the floor-to-ceiling window at the glittering city lights below. "Why?" "Because when I look at you, I see myself 10 years ago." He began his story, his voice carrying a tinge of melancholy. 10 years ago, I was a passionate young guy who entirely trusted my best friend and business partner, but he sold me out. He stole our core tech, sold it to a rival, bankrupted me, and buried me in debt. I almost went to prison. Back then, I was just as isolated and desperate as you are now, being betrayed by the person you trust most. It hurts worse than a knife. It took me 5 years to clear the debt and rebuild from scratch. The scar on your arm will heal, but the scars on the inside are the hardest to cure. I don't want you to repeat my mistakes, drowning in hatred and forgetting how to live for yourself." Serena sat frozen. She never expected that this man, who commanded the storms of Wall Street, had such a tragic past. It turned out his cold, ruthless exterior was merely an armor forged in the fires of betrayal. She set the milk down and walked over to sit beside him. For the first time, she reached out and took his large hand in hers. "Thank you for sharing that with me. You're right, internal wounds are hard to heal. But I think, if someone shares the burden, maybe it hurts a little less." Julian turned to look at her. Their eyes met. There was no more defense, only profound understanding and empathy. In that moment, the distance between their two lonely souls seemed to vanish completely. He gently squeezed her hand, not a grip of lust, but a pure tether of support amidst the storm. The holding cell at the precinct smelled of damp concrete and sour sweat. The harsh fluorescent light on the ceiling flickered, casting an eerie, grim shadow over the room. Serena sat on a cold metal chair in the visitation room, separated from the inside by thick, bulletproof glass. She wore a conservative black dress, her face lightly made up but still showing the fatigue of her recent injury. Beside her sat Attorney Davis and Julian Hayes. The heavy steel door opened, and 2 officers escorted Lucas inside. In just a few days, Lucas had changed so drastically that Serena almost didn't recognize him. His head had been shaved. His face was a patchwork of purple bruises and swelling the aftermath of Julian's beating. His eyes were sunken and vacant, and his wrists were locked in cold steel handcuffs. He shuffled forward, completely devoid of the arrogant posture of his former corporate days. Seeing Serena, a spark of hope ignited in Lucas's dead eyes. He lunged at the glass, his raspy, trembling voice crackling through the intercom. "Serena. Honey? You came to save me, right? I knew it. You still love me. You wouldn't let me die in prison, right?" Serena looked at him. Her eyes were strangely calm, no hatred, no pain, just absolute emptiness. Looking at the man she used to share a bed and make vows with, she felt like she was looking at a total stranger. "I am not here to save you. I am here to inform you that my attorney has submitted all the evidence regarding your charges of attempted murder, major fraud, and corporate espionage to the district attorney. With these charges, you should prepare yourself to rot in a cell for at least 15 years. Hearing the number 15, Lucas's legs gave out. He slid down the chair, snot and tears streaming down his face. "Serena, how can you be so cruel? We were married for 5 years. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. It was that WH times Re Chloe who seduced me. It was Vanguard who set me up. I am just a victim. For the sake of my elderly parents in Ohio, drop the charges, please. I beg you. I am begging you on my knees." He slammed his forehead against the metal table. Thud, thud, thud. Blood trickled from his forehead, but he didn't care. He was putting on a pathetic, desperate show in hopes of softening Serena's heart. At the mention of his parents, Serena smirked, a bitter laugh escaping her. You have the nerve to mention your parents? Did you know that after you were arrested, the loan sharks showed up and smashed their house in Ohio, causing your mother to have a heart attack? I was the one who paid her hospital bills and hired security for them. You are their only son, and this is how you repay them? Lucas froze. He hadn't realized the fallout of his actions was this horrifying. He fell silent, his head bowed, his shoulders shaking violently. As for our 5 years of marriage, Lucas, listen to me clearly. That affection died the day you let your mistress slap my face in the lobby of my company. It died the night you held a knife to my throat. You didn't kill me, but you killed the naive Serena who loved and trusted you. She stood up, adjusted her dress, and glared at him with icy eyes one last time. The court of law will sentence you. As for the court of conscience, judge yourself during your lonely years behind bars. Do not expect me, or anyone else, to save you ever again. Goodbye. Serena turned and walked away with absolute finality. Lucas screamed like a madman behind her, pounding on the glass, but received nothing but the cold silence of the stone walls. Walking out of the precinct, the bright morning sun hit the pavement. Serena took a deep breath of the free air. Her chest felt incredibly light, as if a 1,000-pound boulder had been lifted off her. The ghost of the past had finally been pushed into the eternal darkness. Julian stepped up beside her, opening an umbrella to shield her from the glare. He said nothing, just walking quietly beside her. But his presence was as immovable as a mountain. Let's go. I will take you to get something to eat. You need to recharge to start your new life. Serena looked up at him and smiled a truly radiant smile from the bottom of her heart. All right, today I am treating to celebrate my freedom. The slum district on the outskirts of the city reeked of sewage in the late afternoon. Inside a cramped, filthy, 10-square-foot motel room, Chloe lay curled up on a torn mattress. She had lost so much weight she was nothing but skin and bones. After miscarrying and being kicked out of the hospital for lacking funds, she had crawled into this hole. Lucas was arrested. He had pinned all the blame on her regarding the forged documents and embezzlement in hopes of getting a lighter sentence. The police had issued a summons, but due to her critical health, she was granted bail under strict surveillance. A sharp knock hit the door. Chloe jumped in terror, thinking the loan sharks had found her. She shakily got up and cracked the rotting wooden door. Standing outside were not tattooed thugs but Serena Sterling. Serena stood there, elegant and luxurious, entirely out of place in this squalid environment. She wore dark sunglasses that hid any look of pity. Beside her stood Marcus, her head of security, holding a bag. Miss Sterling. Chloe stammered, not daring to look straight at the woman whose husband she had schemed to steal. Now, their stations in life were worlds apart. One was an eagle soaring in the sky, the other a rat in the gutters. Serena signaled Marcus to stand guard outside, and stepped into the cramped room alone. She looked at the piles of dirty laundry and instant noodle cups scattered around, and let out a soft sigh. I heard you confessed everything to the police about Lucas forcing you to forge the documents. Thanks to your testimony, the investigation is moving much faster. Chloe lowered her head, tears spilling onto the grimy floor. I regret it. I was just his pawn. I lost my baby, my dignity, my entire future. I deserve this, don't I? Serena pulled over the only plastic chair in the room, wiped the dust off it, and sat down. Yes, you do deserve it. You had ambition, but you chose the wrong method and the wrong man. However, I am not the type to drive someone to absolute death. Lucas was the mastermind, and he will pay the ultimate price. As for you, you lost your child. That is the greatest punishment a mother can face. She reached into her designer bag and pulled out a thick envelope and a Greyhound bus ticket. This is $10,000 and a ticket back to your hometown in Ohio. This money is enough for you to get medical treatment and maybe open a small business to get by. Take it and leave tonight. I have spoken to the Financial Crimes Division and vouched for your humanitarian release. Your file will be suspended, provided you promise never to return to New York again. Chloe stared at the envelope of cash, her hands shaking too much to take it. She thought Serena had come to humiliate her, to laugh in her face. She never expected she would offer her a way out. Why? Why are you helping me? I hit you. I stole your husband. Serena stood up and walked toward the door. She stopped without looking back, her voice soft but firm. Because I refuse to let myself become a monster like Lucas. I am helping you not because I forgive you, but because I am earning good karma for myself. Go. Start your life over somewhere no one knows who you are. And remember this lesson. Never rely on a man. Stand on your own 2 feet. With that, Serena stepped out of the dark motel, leaving behind Chloe's agonizing, remorseful sobs. Outside, Julian was waiting by the car. Seeing her walk out, he opened the door for her, his eyes filled with admiration. You did well. Forgiving an enemy is sometimes harder than taking revenge. You gave her an act of grace she will remember for the rest of her life. Serena got into the car and leaned her head tiredly against the seat. I just wanted it all to end peacefully. Hatred is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. Now, Lucas is in prison, Chloe is gone, and I can finally sleep soundly. Julian took her hand and squeezed it gently. From now on, you won't have to fight alone. I am here. We will build everything back up together. Serena looked at him, her eyes shining with unshed tears. In the brilliant glow of the evening sunset, she saw a new future opening up, a future without lies and betrayal, only sincerity and warmth. 3 months after the hurricane named Lucas Vance had passed, Sterling Enterprises did not collapse. Instead, it rose from the ashes stronger than ever. Under Serena's iron fist and Julian's strategic consulting, the toxic debts were purged, personnel restructured, and the stock price hit the ceiling for 10 consecutive days. Today was the final day of the consulting contract between Sterling Enterprises and Apex Capital. Inside the CEO's suite, the atmosphere was unusually somber. Serena sat signing the contract termination papers. Her strokes were decisive, but a vague sense of emptiness crept into her heart. For the past 3 months, Julian's presence by her side had become a habit, an invisible source of security. Now that the job was done, where would their relationship go? She capped her pen and pushed the folder toward Julian. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. Sterling is where it is today because of you. I have wired the commission fee to Apex Capital's account, plus the 10% performance bonus I promised. Julian took the folder but didn't open it. He leaned back in his chair, his deep dark eyes staring intently at her, his expression unreadable. Today, he wore a dark blue dress shirt that accentuated his mature, masculine presence. Miss Sterling is so transactional. Crystal clear with money, brutally decisive with feelings. No wonder they call you the Iron Maiden. Serena smiled lightly, standing up to walk to the window. Steel must be forged in fire. I am no longer a naive girl who believes in fairy tales. The corporate world taught me that all relationships require an equal exchange of value. Julian stood up and walked over to stand beside her. He pulled another document from his briefcase, a deep red folder, and placed it on the coffee table. If you want to talk about value exchange, I have a new venture I'd like to propose. I think you will be interested. Serena turned around, raising an eyebrow in surprise. A new venture? Sterling's cash flow is very stable right now. I have no intention of raising more capital. Just look at it. This is the biggest project of my life. High risk, but infinite returns. Curiosity drove Serena to pick up the folder. The bold text on the first page caught her eye. Lifetime investment contract. She quickly flipped through the pages. Inside, there were no dry financial figures, but bizarre clauses. Party A, Julian Hayes, commits to acting as the exclusive, pro bono strategic advisor for Party B, Serena Sterling, for life. Party A is responsible for providing transportation, protection, and a listening ear for all of Party B's joys and sorrows. Party A guarantees never to betray, never to lie, and to always prioritize Party B. In exchange, the rights of Party A include the right to openly and legally pursue Party B, the right to hold hands, kiss, and exercise the privileges of an official boyfriend upon Party B's consent, and the right to have dinner with Party B every single day. As Serena read, her heart beat faster. She looked up at Julian, finding him looking at her with an unprecedented tenderness, entirely stripping away his usual sharp edge. Are you joking? What kind of contract is this? Julian stepped closer, his familiar sandalwood scent wrapping around her. He reached out and tucked a stray strand of hair behind her ear. His deep voice resonated softly. I am not joking. I am an investor. I know which stock has the most potential. To me, Serena Sterling is not a business partner. She is a priceless treasure. I want to invest my entire life in you, accepting all the risks, hoping only to receive the profit of your smile. Serena felt her nose sting. Someone had once sworn eternal love to her, only to stab her in the back. She had told herself she would lock her heart away forever. But standing before this man, her fortress of ice was melting away. Aren't you afraid of taking a loss? I am a divorced woman with a reputation for being ruthless, and I am a workaholic. Julian took her hand and placed it over his left chest, right where his heart was beating powerfully. I am a risk management expert, remember? The more difficult you are, the more I want to conquer it. Furthermore, I trust my own judgment. You deserve to be loved more than anyone. Serena, sign it. Give me the chance to officially take care of you. Serena looked into his eyes, seeing absolute sincerity and unwavering resolve. She laughed the brightest, most relieved laugh she had let out in years. She picked up a pen and signed her name on the party B line. Fine, I will sign it. But I am warning you, if you breach this contract, the penalty won't be financial. It will be my permanent disappearance from your life. Julian smiled in pure satisfaction, leaning down to kiss her forehead. Understood, boss. The news that Julian Hayes, the brilliant heir to the Hayes family, was dating Serena Sterling, the female CEO who had just gone through a highly publicized, scandalous divorce, quickly spread through New York's high society. The Hayes family was old money, with a long history in academia and diplomacy. Though they didn't flaunt their wealth like the new tech billionaires, their quiet influence was massive. They highly valued tradition, pedigree, and matching social status. One weekend afternoon, Serena received a call from an unknown number. The woman on the other end had a soft but commanding voice. She introduced herself as Eleanor Hayes, Julian's mother, and invited Serena to tea at a highly exclusive historic botanical conservatory club. Serena knew this day would come sooner or later. She chose an elegant, modern silk-wrap dress in emerald green, kept her makeup subtle, and tied her hair in a classic chignon, radiating the sophisticated aura of a mature woman. The private tea room was quiet, with the soft sound of a harp playing in the corner. Eleanor Hayes sat at the table pouring tea. She wore a tailored gray silk suit, her silver-streaked hair styled immaculately, adorned with a string of flawless pearls. Despite her age, she maintained the aristocratic grace of a true socialite. Serena bowed her head respectfully. Good afternoon, Mrs. Hayes. I am Serena Sterling. Eleanor looked up, her sharp eyes sweeping over Serena from head to toe, assessing her. She didn't show outright disdain, but there was no warmth either. She pointed to the chair opposite her. Have a seat. Julian speaks of you often. It is nice to finally meet. You are indeed a sharp and beautiful woman. Serena sat down, keeping her posture perfectly straight. Thank you for the compliment. I have heard much about you from Julian as well, about your grace and excellent taste. Eleanor pushed a steaming, fragrant teacup toward her, her voice calm, but every word laced with subtext. This is a highly exclusive, aged Darjeeling tea. Plucked only in the morning dew, it requires meticulous processing to retain its pure flavor. Much like how the Hayes family chooses a daughter-in-law, we require a clean background, purity, and an equal standing. Serena understood exactly what she was implying. She was subtly bringing up Serena's chaotic past and her broken marriage. Serena did not flinch. She picked up the teacup, took a sip, and smiled in response. Whether tea is good or not depends on the person tasting it and the water used to brew it. Some teas have gone through intense roasting and firing. On the outside, they may no longer look like fresh, delicate leaves, but their flavor is profound, the liquor is clear, and the aftertaste is deeply sweet. I believe people are the same. It is only by surviving the storm that you see who is made of gold and who is made of brass. Eleanor slightly raised an eyebrow, somewhat surprised by the young woman's intelligent and bold retort. She set her teacup down and got straight to the point. Miss Sterling, I will not beat around the bush. You are capable, I acknowledge that, but Julian is my only son. He needs a wife who can step back, manage the household, and uphold our family's traditions. Not an aggressive corporate titan who spends her days in the boardroom, dragging along the tabloid scandal of a public divorce and a physical altercation. This society is harsh. The gossip will tarnish the Hayes family name. Her words felt like needles pricking Serena's pride. But she wasn't angry. She only felt pity for the archaic prejudices that women still had to endure. Mrs. Hayes, I understand your concern, but I love Julian for who he is. Not for the Hayes family wealth or status. I have my own empire. I am financially and personally independent. I do not need to rely on anyone. I believe a strong man like Julian needs a partner who can understand him, share his burdens, and weather the storms alongside him, not just a delicate flower kept in a greenhouse. She looked directly into Eleanor's eyes, her gaze firm but sincere. My past is a scar, but it reminds me to live better. I cannot change the past, but I commit to bringing Julian happiness in the present and the future. If you consider my divorce a stain, then I apologize, but I strongly disagree. It was my escape from a mistake to find the right path. The room fell into silence. Eleanor looked at the young woman before her for a long time. She saw in those eyes the same fierce resilience she herself had possessed in her youth, before it was worn down by the rules of high society. She sighed and poured more water into the teapot. You have a very sharp tongue. I am not accepting you right away. If you want to step through the doors of the Hayes family, you still have a lot to prove. But the tea you brew isn't entirely bad. Serena smiled, feeling a wave of relief. She knew this wasn't full acceptance yet, but at least the door had cracked open. That evening, Julian returned to the Hayes family estate. As soon as he walked through the door, he felt the tense atmosphere. His mother was sitting in the living room reading a book. Seeing him, she took off her reading glasses. Julian, I heard you signed a lifetime contract with this Miss Sterling. Julian handed his coat to the maid and sat down next to his mother. He knew she had met Serena that afternoon. You met her, didn't you? What did you think of her? Eleanor closed her book, her tone remaining stern. Sharp, intelligent, but far too hard. I worry you will grow exhausted living with a woman that ambitious. Furthermore, the extended family is gossiping nonstop about her previous marriage and that ugly public scene. They want you to go on a blind date with the daughter of the Vanguard CEO. Julian took his mother's hand, his voice calm but resolute. Mom, I am 32 years old. I am no longer a child for the family to arrange. I have met every kind of person in this world. I know exactly who is right for me. Serena is hard because she had to protect herself when no one else would. I want to be the man who makes her feel safe enough to take that armor off. He stood up, looking his mother in the eye. I will not go on any blind dates. If the family objects, I am willing to forfeit my inheritance rights and sever ties. I have my own company. I can take care of her. I hope you will support me, because you are the most important person to me. But if you force me to choose between you and her, I will be a bad son, because I will never let go of the woman I love. Eleanor looked at her son, seeing the ironclad determination in his eyes. She knew her boy had grown up, and he was exactly like his grandfather once he loved. He loved to the bitter end. She sighed and waved her hand. All right, all right. If you are going to go that far, why should I stop you? I will handle the extended family, but you better tell her to temper that hot head of hers. Julian smiled and hugged his mother tightly. Thank you, Mom. You are the best. 3 days later, the New York business elite buzzed about the Apex Capital annual gala. It was an event gathering the most powerful figures in the city. Everyone was curious to see who Julian Hayes would bring. When the Rolls-Royce Phantom stopped at the red carpet, hundreds of camera flashes went off simultaneously. The door opened, and Julian stepped out, looking incredibly dashing in a jet black tuxedo. He walked around, opened the other door, and offered his hand to his lady. Serena stepped out, looking like absolute royalty in a burgundy backless evening gown that oozed sophisticated allure. She looped her arm through Julian's, her smile confident and radiant. They walked the red carpet together, looking so breathtakingly perfect that people literally held their breath. The whispers about her past seemed to vaporize instantly under their overwhelming presence. On the main stage, under the dazzling lights, Julian held the microphone, directing his gaze down to Serena in the audience. Ladies and gentlemen, tonight, besides summarizing our financial year, I want to introduce someone very special. She is my most vital strategic partner, and the only woman who holds my heart. The entire ballroom gasped in shock. Julian Hayes had never gone public with his personal life before. There have been many unpleasant rumors about her recently. But I want to make one thing crystal clear. The past builds the person in the present. I love her strength, her resilience, and yes, even her scars. From this day forward, whoever respects her, respects me. Whoever insults her is my enemy. He stepped off the stage, walked straight to Serena, grasped her hand firmly, and raised it high in front of hundreds of VIP guests. Please allow me to introduce Serena Sterling, my future wife. The applause thundered through the room. Serena looked at the man beside her, tears of pure happiness welling in her eyes. He had used the most powerful, most public method possible to protect her, shattering all prejudices and clearing the path for her to enter his world. She squeezed his hand, silently promising to spend the rest of her life repaying this profound love. Following the grand public debut, Serena became the center of attention in New York. A woman who had escaped a hellish marriage, resurrected a corporation from the brink of collapse, and was now standing beside the most eligible heir of the Hayes family. On the outside, she looked like a vibrant, proud, invincible red rose. But no one knew that beneath that perfect exterior, cracks were quietly spreading. At 3:00 a.m., in the massive master bedroom of Julian's penthouse, Serena bolted upright, cold sweat soaking the back of her shirt. She had just suffered a familiar nightmare. In the dream, she saw Lucas charging at her with a bloody knife. She saw Chloe's hateful eyes, and she saw herself standing utterly alone in a crowd of strangers, no one reaching out to save her. She clutched her chest, trying to steady her erratic, rapid breathing. She looked to the side. Julian was still fast asleep, his arm draped protectively over her waist. Serena quietly slipped out from under his arm, tiptoed out of bed, and went into the bathroom. Under the dim yellow vanity light, she saw a frail Serena with distinct dark circles under her eyes, which her daytime makeup usually hid. She opened the medicine cabinet and pulled out a small, unlabeled white pill bottle. Her hands shook as she tapped 2 pills into her palm and swallowed them dry without water. It was high-dose diazepam she had secretly gotten a doctor friend to prescribe. For the past month, without it, she couldn't sleep for more than 2 hours a night. She knew abusing the medication was dangerous, but the terror of the nightmares was far worse. The next morning at the office, Serena was chairing a meeting regarding the new eco-resort development. Suddenly, a ringing pierced her ears. The voices of her department heads became distant and distorted, her vision blurred and tilted. "Miss Sterling, are you okay?" Her assistant's panicked voice pulled her back to reality. Serena jolted, dropping her fountain pen onto the table. She tried to compose herself, forcing a stiff smile. "I am fine, just a slight headache. Let's continue." However, her abnormal behavior did not escape Julian's notice. He had dropped by to take her to lunch and witnessed the episode through the glass walls of the conference room. After the meeting ended, Serena returned to her office, tiredly resting her head on the desk. The door burst open. Julian walked in without knocking. He went straight to her desk and grabbed her handbag from the sofa. "What are you doing?" Serena stood up in a panic, trying to snatch it back, but Julian was faster. He turned the bag upside down, dumping everything onto the coffee table. Lipstick, compacts, her phone, and her wallet tumbled out, and rolling among the mess was the small white pill bottle. Julian picked it up, opened the cap, gave it a sniff, and then looked at her with a razor-sharp glare she had never seen before. "What is this? High-dose diazepam. Are you out of your mind? Serena, how long have you been taking this?" Serena backed away, lowering her head to avoid his gaze, her voice tiny. "I only take it sometimes. I have insomnia." Julian violently threw the pill bottle into the trash can. The harsh smack made Serena jump. He stepped forward, gripping her shoulders hard, forcing her to look him in the eye. "You are lying. Look at yourself. You are gaunt, sluggish, and your reflexes are shot. You are killing yourself, do you realize that? Why didn't you tell me? I am the man who loves you, your future husband. Or do you just see me as a stranger?" Tears spilled from Serena's eyes. The resilience she had spent so long building entirely crumbled before his furious yet deeply caring reaction. "I was scared. I was terrified that if you found out how weak and sick I am, you would be disgusted by me. I didn't want to become a burden to you. Lucas used to call me a hysterical psycho. I was scared." Julian froze. He hadn't realized the psychological ghost that her ex-husband left behind was embedded so deeply in her soul. He pulled her into his arms, hugging her tightly, so tight it felt like he wanted to fuse her into his own bones. "You fool! Lucas is a piece of trash. His words mean absolutely nothing. When you are sick, I take care of you. When you are weak, I protect you. That is my exclusive privilege. As of this second, you are forbidden from touching work." He let her go and pulled out his phone, calling his assistant. "Cancel all my schedules for this week. Book a flight to Aspen immediately for this afternoon. No, skip the commercial flight. Get the private jet ready. Serena and I need a retreat." The private jet landed at Aspen-Pitkin County Airport as the sun set. From there, they drove another 2 hours to an isolated luxury log cabin nestled deep in the Rocky Mountains. There was no cell service here, no internet, and no city smog. There was only the babbling of a nearby creek, the chirping of birds, and the majestic, snow-capped peaks against the deep blue sky. Julian confiscated Serena's phone and tablet the moment they walked through the door, The rule here is a digital detox. Your only job is to eat, sleep, and breathe. My team is handling everything in New York. The earth won't stop spinning if you take a week off. For the first few days, Serena felt incredibly restless. She was addicted to the relentless corporate grind, used to checking her email every 5 minutes. The silence here panicked her, allowing negative thoughts to creep back in. But Julian didn't give her the time to be sad. Early in the mornings, he dragged her out of bed to hike, breathing in the thin, crisp mountain air. In the afternoons, he taught her how to chop wood and tend to the small greenhouse out back. One evening, while the two of them were bustling around the kitchen prepping dinner, Julian, despite being a wealthy heir, was surprisingly skilled at cooking, while Serena, the powerful CEO, was hopelessly clumsy with a bunch of kale. "Ouch!" Serena yelped. The paring knife slipped, slicing her finger, and bright blood welled up. Julian, who was searing steaks in a pan, immediately turned off the stove, rushed over, grabbed her hand, and put the cut finger in his mouth to gently suck the blood away, before quickly finding a bandage. "See? If you don't know how to do it, leave it to me. I told you to just sit there and wait for the food, but you always have to tinker." Serena looked at the man carefully bandaging her hand. He was wearing a simple t-shirt and sweatpants, completely stripped of his cold, aloof executive persona. The Julian of this moment was so approachable, warm, and ordinary. Tears suddenly welled up, not from pain but from being moved. "Julian, why are you so good to me? I am not perfect, I am clumsy, and I am psychologically broken." Julian sighed. He scooped her up in his arms, carried her out to the living room, and sat her on his lap in front of the crackling fireplace. He stroked her hair, his voice deep and warm. "Serena, did you know? 10 years ago, when I went bankrupt, I suffered from clinical depression. I locked myself in a dark room for 3 months and refused to see anyone. At the time, I thought my life was garbage. But my mother patiently sat outside my door every single day, just talking about random things even when I didn't answer. She told me that everyone gets sick sometimes, and the soul is no different. If you are sick, you take medicine. If you are hurt, you heal. There is absolutely no shame in it." He tilted her chin up, looking deep into her eyes. "You do not have to force yourself to be the Iron Maiden in front of me. Cry if you want to. Be weak if you need to. I love you not because you are the CEO of Sterling Enterprises, but because you are Serena Sterling, the only woman who makes my heart beat." Serena buried her face in his shoulder, sobbing loudly like a child. She released all the frustration, humiliation, and terror she had bottled up for years. Her cries blended with the crackling of the fire, dissolving into the warm, cozy space of the log cabin. That night, for the first time in months, Serena slept peacefully without any medication. She lay in Julian's arms, listening to the steady rhythm of his heartbeat, feeling a profound, unprecedented peace. The following days passed in tranquil harmony. They hiked by the frozen streams, stargazed, and read books together. There were no empty vows of eternal love, just trivial conversations about childhoods, hobbies, and unfinished dreams. Serena learned how to relax. She realized that happiness wasn't the number of zeros in her bank account, but the moment she could sit beside the man she loved, sipping hot tea in the freezing winter. Her soul gradually healed. The bleeding wounds began to scab over, making way for new skin. On their last day in Colorado, they stood on a snowy peak, looking down at the sea of white clouds below. Serena shouted into the vast emptiness, "Goodbye to the past. I, Serena Sterling, am back." Julian stood beside her, smiling as he gripped her hand tightly. He knew his phoenix had truly risen from the ashes. New York City welcomed Serena's return with a summer downpour, washing away the city's grime. Stepping off the private jet, Serena stunned everyone with her new look. Long, loose waves replaced her stiff chignon. An elegant cream-colored suit replaced her rigid, aging black blazers. Her eyes were bright, her aura radiant and brimming with vitality. In her very first board meeting upon returning, Serena made a bold decision. She announced the creation of the Phoenix Foundation, a charity funded by 10% of the corporation's annual net profits, dedicated to providing legal, financial, and psychological support for women suffering from domestic abuse and the harsh aftermath of divorce. Initially, the decision faced pushback from some conservative shareholders. They argued that giving away too much to charity would impact their dividends. But Serena crushed their doubts with a detailed strategy. Ladies and gentlemen, business isn't just about making money, it is about creating value for the community. When we stand on the side of women, we gain the support of half the world. The brand image of Sterling Enterprises will be elevated to unprecedented heights. That is the most sustainable profit of all. Her decisiveness and visionary outlook, combined with absolute backing from Julian Hayes, won over the entire board. The Phoenix Foundation launched rapidly, generating massive positive buzz and sending Sterling's brand value skyrocketing. At the same time, the news of Lucas Vance's trial was broadcast on the evening news. In a cramped holding cell at Rikers Island, Lucas sat shivering in front of a small, wall-mounted TV. He was emaciated, his eyes sunken and lifeless. On the screen, Serena was giving a press interview about the launch of the charity foundation. She was beautiful, glamorous, and happy. Beside her stood Julian Hayes, looking at her with overwhelming pride. The verdict was read. Lucas Vance was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison for major fraud, attempted murder, and corporate espionage. 15 years. By the time he got out, he would be nearing 50, penniless, homeless, and with no family. Lucas watched his ex-wife smile on the screen, and tears of delayed, agonizing regret rolled down his cheeks. He had destroyed his own happiness with his own hands out of greed and stupidity. If he had known how to cherish her back then, if he had just been content, the man standing beside her in glory today would have been him, not that Hayes guy. But there is no cure for regret in this world. He buried his head in his knees, his heavy sobs swallowed by the four cold stone walls. As for Serena, she turned off the TV the moment the segment on Lucas ended. There was no gloating, no lingering resentment. In her heart, there was only absolute tranquility. Lucas had become a stranger, a speck of dust in the past that she had completely brushed away. She turned to Julian, who was reading a book beside her. "Julian, I want to restructure the subsidiary. I want to turn the West Side plot, the place that was Lucas's trap, into a public ecological park. Even if we can't build skyscrapers, we can definitely plant trees and build a reservoir. It can be a green lung for the city." Julian put his book down and smiled. "A fantastic idea. Dirt doesn't directly generate cash, but it generates legacy. You are starting to act more and more like a capitalist with a heart." Serena rested her head on his shoulder. "That is because you taught me, Julian. Thank you for pulling me out of the mud." Julian kissed the top of her head. "I didn't pull you out. You stood up on your own. I was just the guy cheering on the sidelines." "Serena, you are truly back, and you are shining brighter than ever." Outside the window, the New York skyline glittered magically. Serena looked out into the distance. She knew the road ahead would still have thorns, and the corporate world would still be full of traps, but she was no longer afraid, because now she had the strength to face it all. And more importantly, she had the greatest companion by her side. Winter in New York arrived earlier than usual this year. The first snow fell gently, blanketing the historic brownstones and towering skyscrapers in pure white. In the cozy library of Julian's penthouse, the fireplace crackled, radiating a pleasant warmth that mingled with the scent of sweet orange essential oil. Serena was sitting on a thick sheepskin rug. Scattered all around her were design blueprints and financial reports for the West Side Eco Park project. Her hair was in a messy bun, and she wore large, round, wire-rimmed glasses, her hand rapidly scribbling and crossing things out on a blueprint. Julian sat on the sofa right behind her, holding an economics book, but his eyes were glued to the delicate shoulders and pale neck of the woman working so passionately. He had been admiring her like this for an hour without getting bored. "Serena, take a break. It's midnight. Are you planning to turn into a panda bear tomorrow?" Serena didn't look up. Her pen kept moving. "Hold on. I have an idea for the reservoir area. If we integrate a natural water filtration system using aquatic plants, operational costs will be cut in half. Look at this. Right here." Her words were cut off when Julian suddenly slid off the sofa and sat on the rug beside her. He took the glasses off her face, set them aside, then grabbed the hand holding the pen, wrapping it inside his warm palms. "I don't care about the reservoir. I only care that my future wife's hands are freezing." Serena laughed, trying to pull her hand back, but he held on tight. "Who is your future wife?" "I haven't accepted anything yet. Your lifetime investment contract is still in the risk assessment phase." Julian looked deep into her eyes, his gaze suddenly turning incredibly serious. He didn't speak. He simply reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, worn wooden box. The lacquer on the outside was slightly chipped from the passage of time. Serena stopped laughing. Her heart started to beat a beat faster. She looked at the box, then at him, waiting. Julian opened the box. Inside was not a massive, flashy diamond as she might have imagined. Resting on the red velvet was a vintage emerald ring, its classic, simple design exuding the profound, enduring beauty of history. This is my grandmother's wedding ring. She wore it for 60 years, through wars and chaos. Before she died, she gave it to me and told me, "Put this on the woman who gives your soul peace, not the woman who makes you the most money." He took the ring out and gently held Serena's left hand. "I know you don't like loud public proposals. And I didn't want to use candles and roses to decorate our love, because those things eventually wither. I just want to use this family heirloom to prove my commitment." Serena felt her throat tighten. She looked at the emerald ring, feeling the weight of history and eternal love his grandmother had entrusted. It was more precious than any diamond in the world. "Serena, I will not promise to give you the whole world, because the world is too vast and full of uncertainties. But I promise that whenever a storm comes, I will be the one standing in front of you. When you are tired, I will be your resting place. When you grow old, I will be the one holding your hand for an evening stroll. Will you agree to let me fulfill these clauses for the rest of my life?" A tear of pure joy rolled down Serena's cheek. She didn't need to think. She didn't need to hesitate. She nodded, her voice choked with emotion. "I agree. I want to grow old with you." Julian smiled, a smile as radiant as the winter sun. He gently slid the ring onto her ring finger. It fit perfectly, as if it had been made just for her. He leaned down and kissed the ring, then leaned up and kissed her lips. A deep, tender kiss brimming with absolute reverence. In the quiet winter night, two hearts that had endured so much pain now beat in unison, bound together by a simple yet sacred vow. The wedding of Julian Hayes and Serena Sterling was dubbed the wedding of the century by the media. Not because of extravagant wastefulness, but because of its sheer elegance and class. The ceremony was held in the historic gardens of the Hayes family estate in upstate New York, shaded by century-old oak trees. The space was decorated primarily with white orchids and peonies, flowers symbolizing nobility and absolute fulfillment. The guests were titans of politics, business, and the arts. There were no loud, tacky wedding games, no cheap entertainment. The ceremony was as dignified and intimate as an aristocratic tea party. Serena wore a custom wedding gown crafted by a world-renowned designer, taking over 300 hours of hand-stitching to complete. The modest yet breathtakingly elegant dress, featuring exquisite French lace, highlighted her slender figure and regal aura. On her finger, the vintage emerald ring stood out against the white fabric, drawing every eye. As the symphony orchestra began to play, Serena walked down the aisle on the arm of a highly respected elder from the Sterling family. Julian stood at the end of the flower-strewn path, looking at her with a gaze overflowing with boundless love. In the sacred moment when they exchanged their vows, the entire garden fell into a moved, emotional silence. Serena looked at the man before her, remembering the thorny journey they had traveled from business partners to allies in revenge, to the ones who healed each other's souls. Destiny had arranged for them to meet at the absolute perfect time. Outside the iron gates of the estate, far removed from the glamour, laughter, and toasts, a woman stood hiding behind a large oak tree. It was Chloe Monroe. 3 years had passed, and Chloe had aged visibly. She wore a faded, worn-out street sweeper's uniform. Her face was gaunt, her skin weathered by the elements, and her sunken eyes looked exhausted. After being banished from New York, she had secretly crept back, doing grueling manual labor just to survive day by day, living like a rat in the city's poorest tenements. Today, hearing the news of Serena's remarriage, curiosity and envy had driven her here. She wanted to see what the woman whose husband she had tried to steal looked like now. Looking through the wrought iron gates, Chloe saw Serena standing on the elevated platform, radiant and blissfully happy like a goddess. Beside her was Julian Hayes, a perfect man Chloe couldn't even dare to dream of in her wildest fantasies. The scene was as beautiful as a painting, yet it acted as a knife twisting in her heart. Chloe looked down at her own rough, calloused hands. She remembered Lucas, the despicable man currently rotting away in a federal prison. She remembered the child that never got to see the world. It was all because of her own greed, because of her own sheer stupidity. A luxury SUV pulled up. A security guard stepped out and waved his hand. "Hey you can't stand here. Move along," Chloe jolted, hurriedly pulling the brim of her cap down low, keeping her head down as she trudged away. Her lonely swaying silhouette slowly dissolved into the rushing, indifferent crowds of the city. It was a tragic but well-deserved ending for someone who tried to build a golden life on top of another's pain. Inside the venue, Serena seemed to sense a familiar gaze. She turned her head toward the gates, but saw nothing except the tree branches swaying in the wind. "What are you looking at?" Julian whispered, leaning close to her ear. Serena smiled, shook her head, and squeezed her husband's hand. "Nothing. Just a passing breeze. Let's continue." She didn't care anymore. What belonged to the past should remain buried in the past. Her present and her future were this man, this family. 3 years later, Sterling Enterprises, under Serena's leadership, officially listed on the New York Stock Exchange, becoming one of the premier real estate and tech conglomerates in the country. The name Serena Sterling became an icon of resilience and success for modern women. But what people admired even more than her career was the blissful home she had built. One weekend afternoon, at the family's newly built lakeside estate in the Hamptons, the crisp laughter of children echoed across the lawn. The twins, a boy and a girl, Leo and Lily, had just turned 2 and were clumsily toddling after a golden retriever. "Leo, don't run so fast. You'll fall," Serena called out while sitting in a wicker chair under the shade of a tree, peeling an apple. She wore a simple white linen sundress, her hair tied loosely. With no makeup on, she still radiated the deep, mature beauty of a woman who was truly fulfilled. Julian stepped out of the house, holding 2 bottles of milk. He maintained his dashing, sophisticated charm, but the icy, sharp glare of the past had been entirely replaced by infinite tenderness whenever he looked at his wife and children. "Let them run around. A boy has to fall a few times to grow up." He handed the bottles to Serena and leaned down to kiss her cheek. "You've worked hard, sweetheart. Tonight, I booked a table at your favorite restaurant for our anniversary. Let's escape the kids and go on a date." Serena laughed, popping a slice of apple into his mouth. "Are you planning to dump the kids at your mother's house again? She's going to spoil them rotten." Julian shrugged, looking entirely pleased with himself. "My mother practically begs for them to come over. You have no idea. Ever since she got grandkids, she changed completely. She dropped all her strict rules and just buys them toys all day." Just then, the twins ran back, tumbling into their parents' arms. Lily affectionately buried her face in Julian's chest, while Leo climbed onto Serena's lap demanding an apple slice. The scene of the family of 4 gathered together was as beautiful as a slow-motion movie, so peaceful and warm it made the heart ache. That evening, after dropping the kids off at their grandmother's, Julian took Serena up to the rooftop of the Sterling Enterprises tower, the very place her resurrection had begun. The night wind whipped through Serena's long hair. She leaned against the railing, looking down at the dazzling lights of New York City. Years ago, she had stood here as a victorious but isolated and heartbroken woman. Years later, she stood here as an incredibly happy wife and mother. Julian walked up behind her, wrapping his arms around her waist, resting his chin on her shoulder. "What are you thinking about?" Serena placed her hands over his, tilting her head to lean against him. "I was just thinking about how miraculous life is. If I hadn't faced that disaster, if I hadn't been betrayed, I probably would have lived forever in that fake, safe bubble. And I never would have met you." Julian tightened his embrace. "Thank you. Thank you for being brave enough to walk through the pain. Thank you for not giving up on yourself, so that I had the chance to love you." Serena turned around in his arms, looking up at the face of the man she loved more than life itself. "Thank you for coming, Julian. You are the greatest gift God ever gave me." Under the starry sky, they shared a passionate kiss. They didn't need flowery, poetic words. They only needed 2 hearts that always pointed toward each other, walking through the storms together to find the rainbow. The story of Serena Sterling closes here, but the echoes of her resilience and true love will remain forever. Happiness is not a destination, but a journey we build with our own hands every single day. And for Serena, that journey was now truly, vibrantly beginning.